Chapter 49. Seeing that Lin Yueling was about to kneel in front of her, Sister Lin thought fiercely in her heart. Even if you kneel, I won't necessarily rent the store to you. That mean face of hers was filled with pride and excitement. But just as Lin Yueling was about to kneel, a hand suddenly reached out and grabbed onto Lin Yueling's arm. That hand was very strong, like an iron clamp, causing her to be unable to kneel any further. Lin Yueling looked back in astonishment, only to see a face as stiff as steel. His eyes were ice cold and his pupils were empty. His entire person gave off an incomparably cold feeling, but the hand that was holding on to her was trembling, showing that his heart was fluctuating violently. This sovereign said before that I will make you the most honorable woman in this world. No one can make you kneel. No one. His voice seemed to come from the horizon. Every word was powerful, and when it landed on the ground, it caused people's hearts to tremble. Son. Lin Yueling had never seen such a proud son. Her heart was stirred up, and she was extremely shocked. Jiang Xiu turned his head and stared into his mother's eyes with a pair of deep, mysterious eyes. Not to mention kneeling in front of a vulgar and despicable vixen. Lin Yueling's entire body trembled. Once upon a time, she was so proud and aloof. Sister Lin stood up and scolded. Little bastard, who are you calling a shrew? You bastard son. This old mother was really blind to rent the store to a bunch of ungrateful wretches like you. Jiang Xiu said. You think that renting the store to my family is a gift to us? What a joke. My family didn't pay you the rent, or my family didn't pay you enough. Also, don't think that just because my family relies on the fruit stall for a living, and because I have to study and can't take the risk, I'll let you exploit me, right? Sister Lin said. That's right, this old mother is exploiting you, so what? You're just a pauper born in poverty. Her face was full of disdain as she spat. I know very well how much your family's fruits earn. There's no way you can save a single cent more. You're still trying to pick a fight with me. Pack up your things and get out of here. Jiang Xiu said. If that's the case, then there's nothing more to say. Auntie Lin said. You've lost your temper and admitted defeat? Are you done being fierce and want to apologize to me? Apologize? Jiang Xiu said. You're wrong. He calmly took out his cell phone, and the call was quickly connected. Seeing that Jiang Xiu was calling, Tang Jinshan was a little excited. Mr. Jiang, what's the matter? Jiang Xiu said indifferently. By the entire street of Cloud Lake South Road for me. Tang Jinshan said straightforwardly. Okay. Sister Lin was laughing so hard that she couldn't straighten her back. Saliva Yong was also very happy, and the surrounding neighbors were all laughing. This joke was too big. First, he bragged that he wanted to buy a shop for his mother. Great, now it was upgraded and he wanted to buy the entire street. With this bragging, why didn't he go to heaven? Jiang Xiu glanced at Sister Lin. You don't have to buy my family's fruit stall. Tang Jinshan said, okay. Jiang Xiu seemed to have said something insignificant and hung up the phone. Sister Lin spat on the side. How shameless. You're just a poor pauper who owns a fruit stall. You can't even afford the rent of 400 yuan a month, but you still want to pretend to be a tycoon. Go ahead and pretend to be a tycoon. You deserve to be poor your whole life. Idiot. Jiang Xiu's eyes flashed coldly, and a terrifying murderous aura surged out of him. Sister Lin's heart couldn't help but jump. She realized that she had been frightened by Jiang Xiu's gaze. She said angrily, What? Don't tell me you want to hit me? You can try to touch me. Hit. Sister Lin's expression changed. Jiang Xiu had already ruthlessly slapped her. Spiritual cultivation wanted to kill Wuji. The word woman was not an umbrella for her to throw a tantrum. The word old was also not an excuse to hit a child who didn't give up her seat. Pa. The slap landed on Sister Lin's face. Her fat and short body was sent flying through the air, crashing directly into the noodle shop's dining table. There was a loud crash, and the Laogan ma soy sauce and vinegar on the table fell to the ground. The entire table was crushed by her. Ah! The onlooking neighbors all screamed. Before Lin Yueling could react, Jiang Xiu strode over, grabbed her hair, and slapped her face again and again. This slap is to remind you that my parents worked so hard to set up a fruit stall to earn money. Why can't you calculate any more money? Who do you think you are to control my family's fate? This slap is to teach you a lesson. Don't forget your roots. If it wasn't for my mother renovating the store, your family wouldn't have been able to live so well without the rent. This slap is for my mother. No one can humiliate her. No one. This slap. Jiang Xiu slapped her with every sentence. After more than 10 slaps, Sister Alin's face was swollen. There was blood at the corner of her mouth, and she couldn't stop trembling. Saliva Yong, call Brother Hao. Only then did Saliva Yong react. I'll call him right away. Kid, you're dead. Some neighbors asked. Who is Brother Hao? The young master of the Dongshin group. I didn't expect Sister Alin to know such a big shot. The neighbor asked, really? That's the Dongshin group. They have bars, KTVs, and parking lots in the Yunhu area. Without his permission, they can't even open a business. How can Sister Alin know such a big shot? You don't know, right? Sister Alin worked for his family when she was young. She took care of Brother Hao for a few days. Hiss. The neighbors immediately sucked in a breath of cold air. Jiang Xiu was done. This time he had really gotten himself into big trouble. After the call went through, Sister Alin cried, Little Haozi, your Sister Alin was hit by someone? She slapped me more than 10 times. My face is disfigured. Yes, it's at Yunhu South Road. My store is here. Okay, I'll wait for you. The neighbors looked at Jiang Xiu with a changed expression. Little bastard, just you wait. When Wang Hao received the call, he was just across the road from Yunhu. The car soon arrived and 3 men got out. Sister Alin saw the man in the front and ran over. Although she was short and fat, she ran very fast. Is it really Wang Hao from the Dongshin group? The eye-catching brand-new Mercedes-Benz was so eye-catching in the dilapidated street. The 4/8 on the license plate showed the owner's extraordinary wealth and power. He's Wang Hao. Wang Hao from the Dongshin group. I heard that he's Master Lei's subordinate and the boss of Yunhu. Lin Yueling's face was pale. She didn't blame the minor repairs. She didn't think that her son did anything wrong. It would be sad if a son didn't do anything when he saw his mother being humiliated. However, she and her mother couldn't bear the consequences. Where's that man? Wang Hao was less than 30 years old. He had a square face and small eyes. He looked very fierce, but he was wearing a suit. He looked like a fierce and powerful person. This kind of person was the kind of person that ordinary people did not dare to provoke. That's him, you little bastard. Sister Alin's fingers reached over. She wanted to slap Jiang Xiu's face. You're Jiang Xiu? You're the one who hit my sister Lin? Logically speaking, this is your private matter. You're just a poor student. I shouldn't bully you. However, Sister Lin took care of me when I was young. She's half my godmother. You hit my godmother. What do you think we should do? Lin Yueling stood up for her son out of habit. However, she was pulled back by Jiang Xiu. He stood with his hands behind his back and looked at Wang Hao with a faint smile. What should we do? It's simple. She wants my mother to kneel down in front of her. Make her kneel down in front of my mother. What? What did you say? Wang Hao seemed to have heard wrongly. He looked at Jiang Xiu with amusement. The faces of the surrounding neighbors turned pale. They looked at Jiang Xiu as if they were looking at an idiot. Did he know who the person in front of him was? He's crazy. How dare you talk to Brother Hao like that? Lin Yueling almost fainted when she heard this. She wanted to say something but was stopped by Wang Hao. He looked at Jiang Xiu with interest and said, Let him continue. Tell me what else he wants to say. I, Wang Hao, am the most reasonable. Jiang Xiu said, If you want to stand up for her, then you'd better be prepared. Hurry up and get out of here before I have the urge to kill you. Wow. The neighbors were in an uproar. Yueling's son was really crazy. He dared to talk to Wang Hao like that. Wang Hao couldn't hold back his anger anymore. Brat, ever since I followed Master Lei, no one has dared to talk to me like that in the Cloud Lake area. I think you're courting death. Chapter 50. Mrs. Lin saw that Wang Hao was enraged, and her eyes were filled with hatred and anger. Yes, little rat, this kid is too arrogant. He doesn't even put you in his eyes. Find someone to hack him to death. Her tone was filled with hatred, and her expression was even more vicious than a gangster's. Those who didn't know better would think that Mrs. Lin was just a gangster. When Lin Yueling heard her son's words, she almost fainted. Originally, this matter could be solved, but now, even if Mrs. Lin was willing to let it go, Wang Hao would never let it go. As a leader, he had to maintain his dignity. As the saying goes, kill the chicken to scare the monkey. Wang Hao would definitely do something to her son. Her heart was filled with sadness. Why are you so stubborn? Why won't you bow down? If something happens to you, how can I live? For her now, Jiang Xiu was everything. Seeing Wang Hao's anger, the surrounding neighbors didn't dare to make a sound. Today's matter was serious, and something bad might happen. They all began to worry for Jiang Xiu. Even if he didn't die, he would definitely lose an arm or a leg, and become a disabled person. They couldn't imagine how miserable his life would be in the future. But Jiang Xiu was still as calm as ever, as if nothing had happened to him. At this time a middle-aged man came in, holding a briefcase. He was surprised to see so many people in the shop. He said to Shui Yong, "Yong, I can't rent the shop to you anymore." Shui Yong was shocked. "Why, Chen Hai, I didn't give you a penny less rent. You can't not rent the shop to me. My business just got better. You want to raise the rent because my business is good." Just now, Sister Lin had completely exposed the landlady's mentality and mouth. Chen Hai smiled and shook his head. "Do I look like that kind of person? It's not that I want to raise the rent, but I've already sold the shop. I came here to tell you about it. As for whether you can continue to rent it in the future, that depends on the new owner. That's it, I'm leaving." Sold it. If that was the case, then there was really no other way. He hurriedly called out to Chen Huan and asked, "Who did you sell it to?" Mr. Chen said, "I sold it to Mr. Jiang." Mr. Jiang? Everyone looked at Shui Yong sympathetically. Ever since his family's noodle shop opened here, business had been booming. The customers actually had no place to sit. That was why he wanted to take over Jiang Xiu's shop. He didn't expect that his own backyard would catch fire. Just as she finished speaking, a voice came from outside. "Feng, it's great that you're here." "Hey, Mr. Wang, why are you here? What's the matter?" "Feng, I'm sorry, but I can't rent my shop to you anymore." "Why?" "I sold it to Mr. Jiang." This? Everyone looked at each other. Why was it sold to Mr. Jiang again? Wang Hao said, "Who is this Mr. Jiang? Why did he buy so many shops? You don't care about money?" However, all of this was just the beginning. Similar news came in an endless stream. "Shui, I can't rent my shop to you anymore. I sold it to Mr. Jiang." "I'm sorry, Brother Ding. My shop has also been sold to Mr. Jiang." For a moment, the entire Yunhu Street was flooded with Mr. Jiang's name. "I sold it to Mr. Jiang." Mr. Jiang. Someone could not help but say, "Oh my God, who is this Mr. Jiang? If he continues to buy like this, is he going to buy the entire Yunhu South Street?" The news was still coming. Bing, my shop has also been sold to Mr. Jiang." Since just now, news came one after another that Mr. Jiang had already bought more than 20 shops. Like a hurricane, he crazily bought the shops on Yunhu South Street. Everyone, you're right. I just heard from the street committee that our entire street has been bought by Mr. Jiang." Whoa. This time, the entire noodle shop and the neighbors who gathered along the way were all in an uproar. What a big deal. This is too shocking. There were thousands of shops on Yunhu Street. If one shop was sold for 200,000 yuan, that would be 200 million yuan. What did 200 million yuan mean? In 2008, the economy had not taken off yet, let alone 100 million yuan. Even a millionaire would cause an uproar. Yunhu South Street has changed. That's right. From now on, this Mr. Jiang will be our owner. Everyone's fate is in his hands. I hope this Mr. Jiang is a good person and can empathize with poor people like us." At that moment someone said, "That's not right. I thought Mrs. Lin's shop was not sold? It doesn't count as buying the entire street." Just a moment ago, Lin Yueling's silly son had said that he wanted to buy the entire Yunhu South Street. Well, there was actually someone who wanted to buy the entire street. Moreover, it just so happened that Mrs. Lin's shop was not sold. Mrs. Lin was also stunned, but she immediately rejected this possibility. It was impossible. It must be a coincidence. What kind of joke was this? That kid was a pauper who only knew how to run a fruit stall. How could he have the money to buy the entire street? Mrs. Lin said. Howsy, didn't you want to teach that kid a lesson for Mrs. Lin? You can't just let it go. Didn't he just tell you to get lost? Wang Hao frowned. He would not forget that the person who could tell Wang Hao to get lost had not said anything yet. At that moment, the noodle shop was rudely pushed open amidst the commotion. A burly man in a black suit and sunglasses walked in. He was a very rough middle-aged man. Mrs. Lin said, "Who are you, slap?" Wang Hao immediately slapped Mrs. Lin's already swollen face. Mrs. Lin was stunned. She did not know what to do. She said timidly, "Howsy, what's wrong?" "Shut up." Wang Hao put on a smile and quickly went forward. He said with a flattering face, Master Lei, why are you here? Your presence brings light to my humble dwelling." When the neighbors of Cloud Lake saw Wang Hao's face, they were all shocked. Who was this person that even Wang Hao had to be so respectful towards? Master Lei? Could it be Delay? If it was him, then it made sense. No wonder young Master Hao was like that. Young Master Hao was with him. If half of Yunhu's underground belonged to young Master Hao, then half of Jiangqing's underground belonged to Delay. Why did such a big Buddha come to such a small place like Yunhu? However, Big Thunder only had Jiang Xiu in his line of sight. He pushed Wang Hao away and came in front of Jiang Xiu. He knelt on both knees. Not only did he kneel on the ground, but he also started slapping himself without saying a word. Lin Yueling was stunned. Jiang Xiu was calm. Delay was hospitalized after that day. He was discharged 2 days ago. However, once he was discharged, he knew about Jiang Xiu's identity. If he wanted to continue relying on the Tang family, he had to get Jiang Xiu's forgiveness. He followed Brother Dong's actions. After that, Jiang Xiu accepted the Tang family. He felt that this method was useful. Slap, slap, slap. His body was upright and he was very respectful. He slapped himself very hard. His cheeks were swollen and the corners of his mouth were protruding. He did not even frown when it affected his previous wound. Silence, dead silence. No, to be precise, there was only the sound of slapping. Everyone was dumbfounded. They looked at everything that happened with incredulous eyes. Wang Hao was so shocked that his eyes almost fell out. That day, when Dong knelt in front of Jiang Xiu and slapped himself, Wang Hao was as shocked as Daily Eye was. What the hell was this? Master Lei Yu. Wang Hao's face was ashen. No matter how stupid he was, he could tell that Delay was kneeling in front of Jiang Xiu. Jiang Xiu did not speak. He pulled Lin Yueling and turned to leave. Slap, slap. However, Delay did not dare to stop slapping. There was a clamor at the end of the street. Both sides of Yunhu South Road were full of silent men in black suits and sunglasses. They were like sculptures. They were exactly the same as the black bodyguards on TV. There were at least 200 or 300 people. The street was full of murderous intent. When they saw Jiang Xiu come out, everyone bowed and shouted in unison, "Mr. Jiang!" What? He's Mr. Jiang. It exploded. It exploded. It was a complete explosion. The entire Nanhu street was dead silent. One could hear a pin drop. These neighbors who watched Jiang Xiu grow up looked at Jiang Xiu in disbelief. Lin Yueling was even more stunned. Chapter 51. When Lin Yueling walked out of the noodle house, she was already very surprised. Although she didn't know who that man was, he must be a great person to be able to make Wang Hao tremble in fear. But he knelt down in front of her son. She was about to question Jiang Xiu and ask him to explain what was going on. But suddenly, the sound of Mr. Jiang was like a sudden clap of thunder that blew up the entire street. The streets of Cloud Lake that stretched for several miles were filled with bodyguards dressed in black and wearing sunglasses. They were shouting in unison. Their momentum was so great that it could be said that they were like tigers swallowing 10,000 miles. It was truly shocking. He is Mr. Jiang? Yueling's son is Mr. Jiang. Mrs. Lin, who was still in the noodle house, was shocked. How can it be? How can it be? There's no reason. Lin Yueling's son is a fruit stall owner. How can it be Mr. Jiang? Even though the entire street was in an uproar, Jiang Xiu was still as calm as ever, with no ripples in his heart. What did such a scene count for? Back in the immortal martial continent, he had even experienced a scene where 1,000,000 immortals and deities knelt down to welcome him. Tang Jinshan's act of creating a scene could only be considered child's play. He looked indifferently at Tang Jinshan walking towards him from afar. Tang, tang, tang. Wang Hao felt his legs trembling. When he saw Master Lei kneel down in front of Jiang Xiu, his heart was already in turmoil. What kind of person could make Master Lei kneel down and slap him? He didn't dare to think further and couldn't think further. When he saw Tang Jinshan appear, his heart completely collapsed. What kind of big shot did I offend? Tang Jinshan came to Jiang Xiu and said with a smile, I hope I didn't delay Mr. Zhang's business. To be able to buy the entire street of Yunhu South Road in just over half an hour, there shouldn't be many people in Jiang City who could compare with this kind of wealth and power. Jiang Xiu said, not slow. Hearing Jiang Xiu's words, the crowd went into an uproar. This was equivalent to admitting Mr. Zhang's identity. It's true. Oh my God, Lin Yueling's son is really Mr. Jiang. He wasn't bragging. He really bought the whole street. Lin Yueling was the most shocked. How could she not know her son? She was just an honest student. Every day after class, she would prepare for the college entrance examination without eating or sleeping. How did he become Mr. Jiang? However, the facts in front of her eyes couldn't lie. Although Lin Yueling didn't know who this person in front of her was, she could tell at first glance that he was a wealthy person. Coincidentally, a few years after the Jiang family's downfall, Tang Jinshan retired from the military and returned to Jiang City because of his old age. Coincidentally, he missed the Jiang family. Otherwise, they might have interacted with each other in the officialdom. His subordinates worked very quickly. They set up tables and chairs in the middle of the street, covered the table with a white tablecloth, and made it look like a French restaurant. They even opened a bottle of 1971 Bortillo red wine. There was also a lawyer accompanying him. He handed over a document. Mr. Jiang, this is the purchase contract. Please sign it. I'll go back to the lawyer's office and sort it out. This was a contract that was signed on behalf of Jiang Xiu. His lawyer, Lu Cheng, had full authority to handle it. There were close to 1,000 sales contracts. Would a big shot like Jiang Xiu have the time to sign them one by one? Of course not. Everything was entrusted to the lawyer. He took a pen and signed his name on the contract. Jiang Xiu. The lawyer nodded and bowed as he put away the document. Then he arrogantly scanned the tenants on the street and said, from now on, the entire street of Yunhu South Road, from Yunhu South Road 1 to Yunhu South Road 1027, belongs to Mr. Jiang. Although they already knew, they couldn't help but burst into an uproar when they heard it. Jiang Xiu, Lin Yueling's son. Not only was he a big shot, but he would also control their livelihood in the future. Wang Hao and Aunt Amu were dragged over by the burly man and pushed into the middle of the street. Mr. Jiang, I was blind. Spare me, spare me. Aunt Amu kowtowed and begged for mercy. At this moment, she completely understood. Everything in front of her told her that the fruit stall owner had made a comeback. Mr. Jiang, I watched you grow up. Spare me, please. Jiang Xiu's gaze was cold, but he didn't care. If this kind of person was in the immortal martial continent, he would have killed her with a flick of his sleeve. It would have simply dirted his hands. However, such a person rode on his family's coattails in his previous life, and even humiliated his mother. Yueling, our host for more than 10 years. Seeing Jiang Xiu's cold expression, she knew that she was done for. She knelt and crawled towards Lin Yueling. Now, she knew that she was the host for more than 10 years. Spare me, please. Lin Yueling was still in a daze. At this moment, she felt as if she had returned to the past, to the time when she was still the young miss of the Lin family. She felt as if everything had returned. She looked towards Jiang Xiu. The son in front of her made her feel both familiar and unfamiliar. Son. Jiang Xiu's gaze swept over her. Scram. Don't let me see you again. In the future, you are not allowed to take half a step into Yunhu South Road. Aunt Amu's eyes widened. The entire street had been sold to Jiang Xiao. Only her shop was not sold. If she wasn't allowed to enter, how was she supposed to collect rent? How could her thoughts escape Jiang Xiao's eyes? Jiang Xiao turned to Wang Hao and said, "You scram too. If she dares to take half a step into Yunhu South Road, break her legs." Wang Hao felt as if he had been pardoned. "Thank you, Mr. Jiang. Thank you, Mr. Jiang. I definitely won't let her take half a step into Yunhu South Road." Aunt Amu was dumbstruck. What a vicious method. It was simply invulnerable. She found a backer to stand up for her. But in the end, it turned out to be her nemesis. This was simply like shooting herself in the foot. She finally understood why Jiang Xiao didn't want to buy her shop. It was because he wanted to forcibly occupy it. Well, it couldn't be said that he was forcibly occupying it. Her small shop was originally just an aisle that was used to store trash. Later on, after it was tidied up, an outer wall was built, and it was renovated. It didn't even have property rights. However, the situation in the past was like this. Many people didn't have property rights. Jiang Xiao also spent money to buy her shop. It was just that he didn't give her money and didn't let her collect rent. In other words, Jiang Xiao had taken it for himself. When she thought of this, she still wanted to make a scene. However, Wang Hao's eyes were cold as he looked at her. Only then did she realize that Lin Yueling's son had become successful. Even Wang Hao couldn't afford to offend him, let alone her. Her heart was filled with fear and regret. There was no need for Tang Jinshan's people to make a move. She was thrown out of the street by Wang Hao's people. She couldn't enter this place anymore. In a small pavilion by the Cloud Lake, Jiang Yi was playing chess with someone. He was only in his 40s, but his hair had already grown white. He was very thin, and his eyes were dim. Even if he was daydreaming, the person playing chess with him was still at a loss. There were also many onlookers, and they were all trying to come up with a plan to fight against Jiang Yi. From time to time he could hear police cars speeding by. 1, 2, 3, what's wrong? What happened? Haven't you heard? There's a big shot in our Cloud Lake South Road. The people at the side came over curiously. Jiang Yi also raised his head. Is it true? That person actually didn't know the situation. The entire street was blocked, and the periphery was filled with people. They were all spreading false rumors and hearsay. I heard that he's returning home in glory. He's very impressive. No one played chess. They wanted to squeeze into the street, but they were all blocked outside by the police. Among the police, there were also bodyguards dressed in black. They looked like statues. At a glance, they were all people in black. There was no end to them. Jiang Yi said, "He's really a big shot. Did you hear? He directly bought our entire Cloud Lake South Road." Whoa, there were cries of surprise. That was really a big deal. Jiang Yi was also extremely shocked when he heard that. In 2008, the economy had yet to take off, and the term nouveau riche had yet to appear. Such extravagant spending was simply unheard of. Buying an entire street was incomparably shocking just hearing about it. Oh no! Jiang Yi came back to his senses and realized that things were not good. The entire street had been bought. Wouldn't that mean that his fruit stall had also changed owners? He wanted to go home to take a look, so he squeezed with all his might. "Mr. Police, let me in. My family lives inside." The police said coldly, "No one is allowed to enter, not even your family. If you offend a big shot, can you at least bear the consequences? Be good and stay outside." Jiang Yi could only helplessly give up. Suddenly, there was another commotion. "The mayor is here." Someone with sharp eyes saw that the fat Qian Chu had arrived. He didn't walk in. Instead, he excitedly ran towards Jiang Yi's direction. Then he excitedly held Jiang Yi's hand. "Old neighbor, you gave birth to a good son. The people of Cloud Lake thank you." Jiang Yi was stunned. Chapter 52. Jiang Yi was really confused. He didn't understand the situation at all. Suddenly, a leader ran over, shook his hand excitedly, and thanked him. Anyone would be confused, but he was still very excited. How could he not be excited to be praised by a leader? Even the people around him were in an uproar. Although they were also confused, it didn't stop them from looking at him with envy. Jiang Yi said, My son? Qianchu didn't make a mistake, right? My son is still studying in school. Qianchu laughed and said, Aya, how can an old neighbor make a mistake? Is your surname Jiang? As long as your surname is Jiang, it's right. Is your family running a fruit stall? As long as it's a fruit stall. Congratulations, your son bought the entire street. Jiang Yi was even more confused. What kind of joke was this? His family was so poor that he didn't even have $100. His son bought the entire street? Qianchu even pulled his hand and walked inside. Come, come, come. I'll accompany you home. Jiang Yi was being led around like a puppet on strings. We're his neighbors. As he spoke, a few people who were playing chess with Jiang Yi also passed through the police cordon. This time, the police uncle didn't dare to stop them. This matter was really awkward. He actually rejected the father of a big shot, and even said that he would offend the big shot. How could a father offend his son? Along the way, there were bodyguards in black. When they saw Jiang Yi being brought over by Qianchu, they realized that this was Mr. Jiang's father. They had to respect him. Unconsciously, they puffed out their chests. Along the way, he saw more than a dozen civil servants of Yunhu district lined up. On the other side, he also saw Wang Hao from the Wanxing group, who dominated the underworld. He was as obedient as a quail. Then he saw a few people who looked like big shots surrounding his son. Jiang Xiu stood proudly with his hands behind his back, looking down at them with disdain. He actually faintly respected him. The officials and businessmen of Yunhu district, the black and white, were all obedient. Father Jiang was shocked, stunned, dazed, and in a daze. Mr. Jiang, your father is here. Jiang Xiu turned around and saw a middle-aged man whom he had not seen for more than 3,000 years. Although he was old, thin, and dispirited, he was still walking with his feet. In Jiang Xiu's memory, he didn't remember much about his childhood. When he was 5 years old, his father was in prison. After he was released, his father was a man of few words. It could be said that there was very little communication between father and son. However, his father was disabled for life because he went to look for the Chung family. This was something that he could never forget. The pain he felt when he saw his father being paralyzed seemed to have happened just yesterday. That kind of pain was heart-wrenching. Death. The word father was as difficult as if it weighed 1,000 kilograms, but after he said it, his emotions surged out uncontrollably. His throat was sore and unbearable, and his eyes were moist as tears welled up in them. Perhaps this was the love between father and son. Minor repairs. Jiang Yi was so frightened by the scene in front of him that he didn't dare to move forward. Logically speaking, he should not be like this since he was born into a wealthy family and was an official in his early years. However, after a person was sent to prison and suffered inhumane torture, this person would be completely destroyed. His hair was messy, his beard was unkempt, his clothes were tattered, and he was still wearing plastic flip-flops. He was timid, or rather, he was so inferior that he didn't dare to move forward. Call him. Everyone on the street shouted in unison. Old Master Jiang. Hundreds and thousands of people on the street shouted in unison. What kind of prestige was that? The sound waves soared into the sky and made people's blood boil. They were so excited that they couldn't control themselves. Awe-inspiring, this was too awe-inspiring. Father Jiang took a step forward and walked forward. No matter how down and out he was, he still had his son. Calling him Old Master Jiang was enough to show that no one dared to look down on him. However, he still asked in disbelief. Minor repairs? What's going on? Jiang Xiu didn't know how to explain. If he said that he had transmigrated, they would definitely think that he was crazy. I'll tell you later when we get home. The neighbors who followed Jiang Yi to watch the commotion were also stunned. Really Old Master Jiang's son? He bought the entire street? And so many big shots came. That's incredible. Jiang Xiu didn't need to stand on the table and hold a loudspeaker. He coldly glanced at the neighbors who were blocked outside by the bodyguards but didn't leave. He said, Dear neighbors, I know what you're worried about. Don't worry. Your shops are all open for rent. The rent will remain the same. Wow. As soon as he said that, the entire Yunhu street was in an uproar. Thank you, Mr. Jiang. That's great. They were afraid that Jiang Xiu would ask them to move out or take the opportunity to increase the rent. Jiang Xiu said. In the future, this street will be under my parents' care. If you have any problems, look for them. Okay. The neighbors all cheered. Jiang Yi and Lin Yueling were still in a daze. It was too unreal. After going through so many difficult days, they suddenly became rich overnight. It was like a dream, but they were also very excited. Then everyone can disperse. Go do what you need to do. The bodyguards began to leave. The neighbors could return to their shops as normal. Tang Jinshan said, Mr. Jiang, since the matter here has been resolved, I'll go back first. I won't disturb your family. Old Master Jiang, Mrs. Jiang, I'll take my leave. Tang Jinshan was much older than them. Jiang Yi and his wife couldn't help but feel a little strange when they saw him being so polite. Little Xiu, can you tell me what's going on now? When they returned home, the couple couldn't wait to find out what had happened. Jiang Xiu had already found an excuse. He said, a while ago, I went up the mountain to relax. I happened to see a car accident that almost fell off the cliff, so I lent a hand. The person in the car was old Master Tang Jinshan. In order to repay me, he promised to do something for me. The couple was overjoyed. So that was the case. Lin Yueling immediately said, if old master wants to repay your kindness, he can just support you. Why do you need all this glory? Sometimes having money isn't a good thing. It can destroy a person. You should ask old master for a future, not a ready-made one. After all, Lin Yueling was born into a wealthy family. Her outlook was different from that of ordinary women. Once a person had money, would they still work hard? The possibility was very small. Then their achievements would naturally be small. Jiang Xiu smiled and said, he shouldn't be so generous. He should rent it for a few years. After the demolition, he might have to start a project. At that time, the street shouldn't belong to us anymore. Renting it for a few years was also very generous. The rent for a shop was 1,000 yuan a month. There were more than 1,000 shops, so it would be more than 1,000,000 yuan a month. It would be more than 10 million yuan a year. After a few years, it would be tens of millions. Okay. Lin Yueling felt that it was still too harsh. But no matter what, this was a great thing for their family. Everyone wanted to live a good life, especially Lin Yueling and Jiang Yi, who used to be rich. Mom, go buy some meat. Tonight, let's celebrate. Seeing the smile on his mother's face, Jiang Xiu was sincerely happy. In his memory, his mother didn't smile much. Then, she took her wallet and went out to the market. When she went out on the street again, the people in the market might not dare to take her money and play. She was the owner of the whole street. Jiang Yi, who was beside him, didn't say much. Although Jiang Xiu's words were reasonable, in his opinion, there were many doubts. If it was just to repay a debt of gratitude, there was no need to make such a big scene. In addition, Tang Jinshan had always been respectful to Jiang Xiu, and even to the two of them. If it was to repay a debt of gratitude, being polite was enough. It didn't make sense. However, it seemed that other than Jiang Xiu's explanation, he really couldn't think of any other reason. Jiang Xiu said, Dad, which area do you think is good? Let's move to a new house. Jiang Yi shook his head and said, you and your mother decide. In Jiang Xiu's father's eyes, there was always loneliness. In the past, Jiang Xiu didn't understand his father very well, but now he understood that his father was a very proud person. He didn't yearn for wealth and glory, nor did he covet it. Otherwise, he wouldn't insist on his love. His pain was because his ambition couldn't be realized. For a person like him, even if there were mountains of gold and silver in front of him, he wouldn't care. In his heart, there was a knot that he couldn't get over. The knot in his heart was in the capital. Unless one day, Jiang Xiu could step over it. Seeing through his father's thoughts, spiritual cultivation smiled faintly. So what if it was the capital? So what if it was the top rich and powerful family? It couldn't compare to his 100 years of spiritual cultivation. 3,000 worlds were like grass, and ordinary people were like dust and mud. Chapter 53. Riches and honor were naturally like this. If the poor caused trouble, no one would care. If the rich were deep in the mountains, people would look for them. That night, Jiang Xiu's house often had people knocking on the door. They were all neighbors who came to deliver things. If it wasn't fruit, then it was vegetables. However, no one came in to sit. They just put down the things and left. The family ate on the balcony, and there was no extra space in the house. Jiang Yi, who had always been a man of few words, said a few more words after drinking. You win some, you lose some. I used to envy the lives of the rich, but you will find that the lives of the rich are not free. Jiang Xiu knew that his father wasn't talking nonsense. His life had been full of ups and downs. He had encountered too many things. These were his words from the bottom of his heart. He was using his own experience to persuade Jiang Xiu. Jiang Yi said, "There is an old saying called worrying about gains and losses. If you don't have it, then you won't be afraid of losing it. It's like a person who worked hard to obtain wealth, but is always worried about losing it. It wasn't easy to marry a beautiful wife, but he is worried that she will run away with someone else. Therefore, being ordinary is true." Lin Yueling's eyes were smiling. She hadn't seen her husband like this for a long time. At this moment, she seemed to see the high-spirited and intelligent Jiang Yi. She teased him and said, "You never worried about me running away because I'm not beautiful enough." Jiang Yi said, "It's not that you're not beautiful enough. It's just that only my eyes can see your beauty." Jiang Xiu interrupted. "And me?" Lin Yueling couldn't help but laugh. "At least you know your place." Speaking of which, it wasn't Jiang Xiu who said that his mother was beautiful. When she was young, Lin Yueling could be considered a first-class beauty. In addition, she was the daughter of a rich family. Her temperament was definitely not worse than Cheng Lingsu and Yi Bing. Jiang Yi took another sip. As the spicy white wine flowed down his throat, he quickly picked up a few mouthfuls of food and said, "There are too many temptations in this world. Money, power, and beautiful women. No one can guarantee that they won't lose themselves in front of these. Therefore, people must be clear about what they want. They must walk towards their goal unswervingly, and not be disturbed by anything outside." When he was young, Jiang Xiu couldn't remember if his father had taught him like this. However, after he went to prison, he didn't have such an opportunity. After he was released, he was very depraved. At this moment, Jiang Xiu knew that his father wanted to truly guide him. Although this sentence came 3,000 years too late, Jiang Xiu had already done so. It was precisely because his goal was resolute. After stepping on the path of cultivation, he would overcome all obstacles, bravely forging ahead, standing out from the countless experts of the immortal martial continent, achieving the spiritual cultivation that allowed him to roam unhindered in the immortal martial continent. Jiang Yi said, "A few days ago, Cheng Hanlin's wife called to talk about you and Cheng Lingsu. Did something happen between the two of you?" Lin Yueling also curiously stared at Jiang Xiu's face. Jiang Xiu said, "Nothing. She came to talk to me about canceling the engagement. Some things had to be faced sooner or later. It was better to resolve it sooner rather than later." Jiang Yi asked, "Then what do you think?" Jiang Xiu said, "I don't have any objections." Their son's words caused Jiang Yi and Lin Yueling to feel very astonished. Jiang Xiu was at the age of youth and Cheng Lingsu was so beautiful. How could he not be moved and have such an indifferent expression? Jiang Yi said, "This world is much more complicated and cruel than you think. Most of the time, people have to learn to protect themselves. Don't take advantage of others, but never let yourself suffer losses. Otherwise, others will think that you are easy to bully." From this sentence, Jiang Xiu could feel that his father had resentment against the Cheng family, because his life could be said to have been completely ruined by Cheng Hanlin. And Cheng Hanlin had always promised to marry his daughter to Jiang Xiu, to help the Jiang family postpone the marriage, and even to share most of the property as dowry. Now the Cheng family wanted to cancel the engagement. How could Jiang Yi agree? A trace of coldness flashed in his eyes, and he looked extremely determined. "Your father is right." Lin Yueling's face was unprecedentedly dignified. The Cheng family caused her to lose her wealth and splendor. She was separated from her husband for more than 10 years. She suffered hardships alone, and lived with Jiang Xiu under others' roof. She was despised by the world. Didn't she hate them? Jiang Xiu realized that it was really difficult to cancel the engagement with the Cheng family. Even if he didn't want to marry Chunglingsu, he was afraid that his parents wouldn't agree. Thinking of this, he frowned slightly. He said, "Mom, let's buy a house tomorrow and see where you like." As he said this, he handed over the 1 million yuan bank card given by Tang Wenchong. Lin Yueling said, "Let's live here first. We can buy a house with the rent we receive in a few months. The shops are all here. We can buy a suitable house nearby." Hearing Lin Yueling's words, Jiang Xiu didn't insist and took back the bank card. Jiang Yi and Lin Yueling were both people who had seen the world. After suddenly becoming rich, they didn't want to spend as much as they could. They couldn't wait to get back all the money they didn't spend in the past. Their minds were very calm. On the other hand, Jiang Xiu needed a house for himself. He had to cultivate every day, and it was inevitable that he would make noise. Even if he bought a house for his parents, he still needed one for himself. After dinner, Jiang Xiu called Tang Jinshan. "Mr. Jiang." Jiang Xiu said, "I want to buy a house. Arrange it for me." His tone was as if he was ordering his own servant. Tang Jinshan helped him today and spent hundreds of millions. The Department of Spiritual Cultivation wanted to promote him. In the Tianmu continent, many people hoped to be promoted by the Department of Spiritual Cultivation. It was just like how ancient officials hoped to be promoted by the emperor. In his eyes, it was naturally a gift. Tang Jinshan said, "Coincidentally, I have a villa there. It was supposed to be used for retirement, but I'm still used to living in the military compound. I still miss the feeling of being a soldier. Why don't Mr. Jiang accept it and live there?" Okay. Not long after, Tang Wenchong came to Yinhu South Road and gave the villa key to Jiang Xiu. They walked all the way up the wetland villa area. At this time, the sky was dark. The wetland was covered with fog, and the villa looked ethereal. Good place, good feng shui. Stepping on the cobblestone corridor, they walked toward their new home. Suddenly, a man and two women walked toward them. It was a middle-aged couple with a beautiful girl. This wasn't a coincidence. The girl saw Jiang Xiu and blushed. She didn't know whether to call him or not. After a while, she opened her mouth and said in a natural and unrestrained tone, "Jiang Xiu, why are you here?" The girl was his classmate Yi Bing. "Hey, what a coincidence." Seeing the man beside Yi Bing, he said, "This must be Uncle Yi." "Hello, Uncle Yi." "Hello, Auntie." How polite. The Department of Spiritual Cultivation had never been so polite before. After seeing his parents today, he lowered his attitude and became more down-to-earth. If he opened his mouth and said this Lord again, Father Yi and Mother Ye's faces would probably turn green with anger. Yi Ilyang heard rumors at the banquet, so he wasn't in the mood to attend the banquet. It was because of this that he avoided the supernatural incident. However, when he went home and asked his wife about it, it was true. He was so angry that his lungs exploded. "You're that Jiang Xiu?" Yi Bing's beautiful eyes immediately widened. "Daddy knows Jiang Xiu." Shua, her charming face flushed red in an instant. Even her ears were completely red. It must be that Mommy didn't keep her word and told Daddy about how she and Jiang Xiu were caught in the act. She really didn't have the face to stay any longer, and ran off with her long legs. Bing Bing. Seeing this, Mother Yi quickly chased after her, afraid that something would happen to her precious daughter. Jiang Xiu didn't expect Yi Bing's skin to be so thin. He found it funny and awkward. Speaking of which, he was really helpless. How could such a situation happen that day? Seeing Jiang Xiu's smile, Yi Liang frowned. "I heard that your family owns a fruit stall." Jiang Xiu said, "Yes." Yi Ilyang said, "I heard that your father was in prison?" Jiang Xiu said, "Yes." Yi Ilyang said, "Do you know who I am?" "I know." Yi Ilyang nodded. "You're very calm and courageous. I heard that you're also quite skilled. You once defeated the entire martial arts department of No. 1 Middle School, and defeated more than 200 of Daily Eye's subordinates in the entertainment city." Jiang Xiu said, "Everyone has their strengths." Yi Ilyang smiled disdainfully. "Your martial arts cultivation isn't weak. You have a good relationship with the Tang family's young master, Tang Wenchong. It's not too much to find a girl as beautiful as Bing Bing. It's just a pity that Yi Bing is different from other beautiful girls." Jiang Xiu asked. What's the difference? Yi Ilyang said proudly. The biggest difference between her and other girls is that she's my daughter. You want to be her man? You. No. Enough. Qualifications. Go. He enunciated every word with a look of disdain in his eyes. He was shockingly confident. Jiang Xiu asked, Oh, is that so? Then how do I qualify? Yi Ilyang said. In terms of family affairs, martial arts is at the military level, and literature is at the department level. It's just ability. Before 30, martial arts is at the school level, and literature is at the district level. And your martial arts cultivation is not bad. It's not difficult for you to apply to a famous university and win a free combat championship, but that's all. After saying that, he walked past Jiang Xiu and patted Jiang Xiu's shoulder lightly, as if comforting him that reality was so cruel, comforting his painful and unwilling soul, and comforting him that he had lost his daughter Yi Bing. Chapter 54. Jiang Xiu smiled faintly and looked back at Yi Ilyang's back. He said calmly, Ben, Yi Bing and I are just classmates. There's nothing else. That's your wishful thinking. Yi Ilyang also looked back and smiled faintly. That's for the best. After saying that, he strode away, but secretly shook his head. His evaluation of Jiang Xiu dropped a few notches. He was caught in bed with Bing Bing, but because of the elder's obstruction, he pushed away all responsibility. Such a man was irresponsible and lacked courage. He had already lost the foundation for success. He originally wanted to guide this young man and let him stay away from his precious daughter. But now he no longer cared about Jiang Xiu. A group of people walked down from the dark. They were silent and solemn, and followed Yi Ilyang. They were actually Yi Ilyang's bodyguards. At first glance, they were all extraordinary people. Looking at the status of these bodyguards, they were much higher than Tang Jinshan's. When the old man in the lead passed by Jiang Xiu, he said casually, Young man, young master hasn't thought of guiding the younger generation for a long time. Maybe you still don't know what you've missed? Jiang Xiu said. What? Seeing that Jiang Xiu was still ignorant, the old man felt sad. He said, Since you asked, I'll give you some advice. He glanced at Jiang Xiu and sneered. Young master doesn't need anyone. As long as you admit your relationship with Miss and agree to give up, young master will give you a future in return. But you missed it because of your ignorance and cowardice. You originally had the chance to become someone like young master, but now you're at most like me. With Yi Ilyang's guidance, Jiang Xiu could still achieve something even if he couldn't become an ambitious person like Yi Ilyang or Tang Jinshan. But now he could only rely on his fists. One was the master, the other was the servant. Even if he reached the top, he would only be the top servant. He could only depend on others forever. After that, the old man walked past him and patted Jiang Xiu's shoulder gently. He seemed to be comforting him for his ignorance and stupidity, comforting him for the storm in his heart, and comforting him for his future regret. Then, without looking at Jiang Xiu again, he walked away. Jiang Xiu blinked and said indifferently, The gift in your eyes may be a joke in my eyes. What? When the old man heard this, his face immediately turned cold. He suddenly turned around and said, Arrogant and ignorant. With a flick of his sleeves, he strode away. This old man had reached the transcendent state, and had already reached the level of a martial arts grandmaster. However, in the eyes of the Department of Spiritual Cultivation, not to mention him, Jiangqing City, Jiangnan Province, the entire Hua Nation, and even this planet were nothing. No matter how talented you are, no matter how powerful you are, you will not be able to stop the spiritual cultivation. After 100 years, you will be nothing but dust. The old man walked through the river corridor and followed Yi Ilyang's footsteps. The former's eyes swept across the misty wetland water surface. Under the scenery after dusk, it was like a fairyland. He said, Elder Lin, I saw you say something to that kid just now. Yi Ilyang was interested. Don't tell me you are teaching him to deal with me again? It was rare for the host and guest to joke like this. It was really because Jiang Xiu was too insignificant. Unexpectedly, the old man's face was gloomy and his tone was stiff with anger. A child who is completely ignorant of the world. Yi Ilyang said in surprise. What's wrong? Did that kid offend you, Elder Lin? The old man said. He is so ignorant that it is ridiculous. He actually said that the young master's support is worthless in his eyes. It is a joke. What? Yi Ilyang could not believe his ears. Arrogant. This was not arrogance but ignorance. Forget it, let's not care about him. Elder Lin, I received news that Lin Jinbei is back. It seems like the rumors are true. This time he came back and said that he wants to rule Jiang City. A mere Lin Jinbei dares to say that he wants to rule Jiang City. The old man felt that this matter was really laughable. I will have to trouble Elder Lin this time. Elder Lin smiled faintly. Young master, don't worry. Lin Jinbei will not be able to do anything in my hands. If not for the fact that young master was young and had no subordinates, you would not have to look for Tang Jinshan to deal with Lin Jinbei. If not, you would not have given up such a huge Jiang City. Otherwise, Jiang City would have to respect you. Yi Ilyang said. Misfortune is a blessing in disguise. If not for the fact that I was forced to leave that year, my old man would not have arranged for Elder Lin to be under me. It is fine. It is only 10 years later. It is not too late. Elder Lin looked at Yi Ilyang and felt that the young master's heart was calmer. But if you want to fight for Jiang City now, you will have to fight with Tang Jinshan. That old man has been in Jiang City for more than 10 years. He is not easy to deal with. Yi Ilyang muttered, Lin Jinbei is really petty. He is not ruthless at all. He only chopped off one of Tang Jinshan's hands and let him go. It seems like what happened back then scared him quite a bit. However, Tang Jinshan is already in his 70s. Plus, he has a broken hand. I am only in my 40s. I can exhaust him to death. Jiang Xiao entered the villa. The furnishings inside were filled with an antique flavor and were very elegant. It could be seen that Tang Jinshan was very attentive to this villa. After all, it was for his retirement. A lifetime of glory. He must enjoy it when he is old. His eyes wandered around the villa. After identifying the location of the feng shui, he chose a master bedroom to stay in. Just as he was about to cultivate, his phone rang. He received a text message. He opened it and saw that it was from Yi Bing. Yi Bing, Jiang Xiao, you bastard. You made me get punished by my mother again. Jiang Xiao, what does it have to do with me? Yi Bing, if you didn't come to find me, would my mother punish me? Jiang Xiao, what a joke. My new home is here. Yi Bing, you live here? Who are you kidding? Bastard Jiang Xiao, don't let me see you in school. Otherwise, I will beat you up every time I see you. After saying that, Yi Bing threw the phone on the bed. She was so angry, but for some reason her face was still red. Hot, very hot. Jiang Xiao also threw his phone on the bed. After a while he said, Ignorant, stupid. You want to fight with me? Do you think I have no magic power in my body when I just came back? Now that I have awakened 2 of my powers, even masters are no match for me. You are just a little girl. How dare you say that I will beat you up every time I see you? If you said that to the schoolmaster of Tianqing School in the immortal martial continent, you would be sentenced to death. Stupid girl. He snorted coldly. Then he sat down cross-legged and started cultivating. There was still some energy left from the last Yin soul. On Earth, where spiritual power was completely exhausted, this bit of energy was quite precious to him. Naturally, he had to absorb it all. It was like when there was a famine. Even if you used to eat delicacies every day, now you would lick the bottom of the bowl clean. Although it was very shabby, he couldn't care less about spiritual cultivation anymore. The divine cultivation technique he used was a very tyrannical cultivation technique for Protoss. It forcibly absorbed energy from the outside world into the body and made it his own. Although it could increase his cultivation in a short period of time, it was inevitable that his realm would be unstable. Once something went wrong or he was injured, his realm would easily drop. Therefore, on the immortal martial continent, although Protoss bodies were strong, once they were injured, their recovery period would be much longer than other people's. However, it wasn't that there was no way to make up for this shortcoming. It could purify energy and stabilize one's realm. Jiang Xiao had countless similar techniques in his mind. Let's do this. His eyes suddenly opened. Just as he started to purify his magic power, he felt a mysterious energy fluctuation in the room. Immediately, he got off the bed and narrowed his eyes, searching for that mysterious energy fluctuation. This made him very excited. If there was an energy body, it would be a heavenly treasure for a divine cultivator like him. After passing through the corridor, he arrived in front of a wooden door. He casually pushed it open. It was an ancient-looking tea room. In front of the tea room was a shrine. The shrine didn't have any incense. The energy didn't come from the shrine, but from a mask placed on top of the shrine. Jiang Xiu reached out and took off the mask. The mask was a bit like the bronze statues in Sichuan. It had big eyes, a big mouth, and a somewhat sinister face. The workmanship was very rough, and there was even rust on it. Jiang Xiu was very shocked. This is the power of a god. Chapter 55. Jiang Xiu was indeed surprised, but after thinking about it carefully, it wasn't surprising. The blood in his body could awaken the Protoss, which meant that the mortals on Earth were indeed the descendants of the Protoss. It wasn't surprising that they left behind the relics of God. However, he was surprised that it still existed after so many years. He turned the mask over. The back was bumpy, uneven, and shapeless. From this, he could tell that it wasn't a mask, but a broken bronze statue. Jiang Xiu's slender fingers lightly stroked the surface of the statue, and the statue emitted a wave of energy, causing Jiang Xiu's fingers to tremble slightly. His expression was incomparably solemn, and after muttering to himself for a moment, he spat out 4 words, Divine Tao Faith. If Jiang Xiu guessed correctly, the broken bronze statue should be a statue of God. This image, Jiang Xiu had seen countless Protoss, and each Protoss had its own characteristics. He didn't dare to say that he had seen all of them, but he had seen most of them. He had even read about some of the dead Protoss in books, but he hadn't seen anything similar. There was a problem with this bronze statue, which was that it couldn't really record the face of the Protoss. Usually, believers would only make a statue of God to obscure the true appearance of God. It could be said that it was to make the statue mysterious or to avoid blasphemy, but it couldn't be seen clearly. In addition, the rough carving and the corrosion of time made it difficult to recognize the statue. Of course, there was also the possibility that the statue's characteristics were on the torso or other places. God's faith is so weak. It must have lost its inheritance. If the God's faith was still there, its power would definitely be more than this. Such a small amount of power might not even be enough to transmit a voice. However, this gave Jiang Xiu hope. No matter how thin a mosquito was, it was still meat. He took out his phone and called Tang Jinshan again. The old man was already asleep, and the one who answered the phone was Ah Dong. When he saw that it was Jiang Xiu calling, he immediately woke the old man up. Although he felt sorry for the old man, he didn't dare to neglect Jiang Xiu. This was the old man's order. No matter when or where Mr. Zhang's call was, he had to be the first to answer it. Statue of God? This bronze mask did have the power of faith, and Tang Jinshan worshipped it on the altar. He must have some understanding of the bronze mask, or else he wouldn't worship it. Oh right, statue of God. Tang Jinshan suddenly remembered that he made an altar in the villa's tea room. He would do his homework every day. After placing a statue of God, it was easier for him to enter the state of things. The renovation had already been done, but he didn't move in later, so he forgot about it. What's wrong with that statue of God's? Jiang Xiu asked. Where did you get this statue mask? Do you have any more? It God's assessed this statue of God's mask was damaged, and the power on it was too weak. If it was complete, then the statue's power would be much stronger, and it should be able to increase its power. No, as for its origin. Tang Jinshan on the other side of the phone thought for a moment, then said, Mr. Jiang, have you heard of a saying? It's called, when soldiers gather, the gods open the door. No, Jiang Xiu said. In his previous life, his knowledge was very shallow, and he didn't know much about ghosts and gods. At that time, he even thought that ghosts and gods didn't exist in this world. He didn't know about these things himself. Next to Tang Jinshan, A young nurse wearing a pink nurse uniform took out a cushion for Tang Jinshan to lean on. The old man organized his thoughts and said, "A few hundred years ago, there was a huge disaster in the East Continent to the south of Jiangcheng. After the disaster, there was a plague. At that time, there were starving people on the road, and the people had no way to make a living. Just as the people were in despair, a strange cult suddenly appeared. It was called the Heavenly Tao. Their slogan was, 'When soldiers gather, the gods open the door.' As long as you believe in them, you will have the opportunity to become a Tao soldier. You will be able to open the door of time and space for the immortals to ascend to the immortal world and become immortals. People in despair will see hope. That is very scary." The cult developed very quickly. But later, for some reason, it suddenly disappeared. Just like how he appeared. No, it was even faster. It was as if they all disappeared overnight. Jiang Xiu asked, "This statue of God's mask is the statue of God that the Heavenly Tao worships?" Tang Jinshan said, "That's right. This statue of God doesn't belong to me. It belongs to a mutant in Jiangcheng. Mr. Jiang has seen it before. This person is Lin Jinbei. This person is a fanatic, and he has always wanted to become a soldier. Martial artists have 3 stages: outer realm, inner realm, and transformative realm. After transcending the transformative realm, one can break through the void and ascend. Lin Jinbei believes that this is consistent with the teachings of the Heavenly Tao. Once one reaches that level, the gods will open the doors of the immortal realm and receive them." Jiang Xiu was very sure that the 3 stages of martial cultivators referred to the Qi refinement realm of the immortal martial continent. The Tao soldiers referred to the foundation establishment stage of the immortal martial continent, which was also the foundation establishment stage of the immortal martial continent. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that they could break through the void and ascend to the heavens. As for the gods opening the door, it was hard to say. Tang Jinshan said, "Lin Jinbei came back this time to take revenge on me. His main purpose is to become a soldier." "Mr. Jiang, do you believe in the Heavenly Tao?" Jiang Xiu said, "When this sovereign was very young, there was an old man who told this sovereign that there were immortals living in the mountains. When I was young, everyone believed it. But when I grew up, no one believed it anymore." Tang Jinshan said, "After a while, there will be a Heavenly Tao convention in the East Continent to compete for soldiers." Jiang Xiu was surprised. "Didn't you say that the Heavenly Tao has disappeared?" Tang Jinshan said, "It disappeared back then, but there are still people who use the name of the Heavenly Tao to do things. As for whether it is the Heavenly Tao from back then, so many years have passed, and no one can verify it. However, the attraction of a soldier is no less than back then." Jiang Xiu said in his heart, "Once a martial artist reaches the peak of transforming Jing, he will definitely be able to sense the existence of a higher realm. Then he will believe in the matter of breaking through the void and ascending to immortality." "Mr. Jiang, Lin Jinbei is intimidated by Mr. Jiang's invincible might and doesn't dare to act rashly. But if the matter of this soldier is true, and he coincidentally becomes a soldier, then it will be very troublesome. Ha ha ha." Jiang Xiu laughed loudly when he heard this. This sudden laughter made Tang Jinshan's hair stand on end. He felt Jiang Xiu's infinite contempt, but he didn't know what it was. "We can go and have some fun. If there was really a Protoss left behind on Earth, it would be an opportunity to gain power." Tang Jinshan said happily, "Okay, everything depends on Mr. Jiang." Lin Jinbei's survival was like a fishbone stuck in his throat. Jiang Xiu hung up the phone and played with the mask in his hand. Then, a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He wanted to try and see if the god of Tian Taoism was still around. Originally, he thought that it was definitely not around, but now he had some doubts that it might still be around. The reason was very simple. It was because the legend of the soldier was still around. If it was fake, there was no way for it to flourish again after it was cut off. He put the mask back and opened the drawer. Sure enough, there were incense candles inside. After taking them out, he lit them with a lighter and inserted them into the drawer. Then he began to chant. Slowly, green smoke rose in spirals. At first, there was nothing unusual, but as he chanted the spell, the white smoke actually gathered and didn't disperse. "It's really here." Jiang Xiu only used the invincible incantation. The green smoke continued to rise and began to gather into a shape at a speed visible to the naked eye. It was the shape of a human body. Seeing this scene, Jiang Xiu's lips unconsciously curled into a smile, but the coldness in his eyes became stronger. In the end, it formed into a lifelike image of an old man with a white beard. What believer is so diligent? The voice was vast, as if it came from the horizon. The light flashed again, and the lifelike image became even more real. Although it was condensed from smoke, it was dressed in ancient clothes and looked calm. Even the expression on its face could be seen clearly. However, what awaited him was Jiang Xiu's mocking and cold eyes. His expression suddenly changed and he shouted, "Who are you?" This was because he felt that Jiang Xiu's expression was not friendly, and there was a very dangerous aura. This made him feel cold and terrified. Suddenly, Jiang Xiu stretched out a hand. He turned pale with fright. Chapter 56. It was too sudden. The old man did not even have time to react. Jiang Chen had already reached out his hand, but the old man was only surprised for a moment, because he did not have a body, he was just a wisp of smoke. Even if Jiang Chen attacked him, he would not be in any danger. He then revealed a mocking smile, ignorant human. However, when Jiang Xiu's hand grabbed him, he felt as if his soul was being grabbed. There was also a sharp pain. Suddenly, his expression changed drastically. He was like a mouse that was being strangled. He screamed miserably. Spirit binding technique. At this moment, the black pupils in Jiang Xiu's eyes had already melted. His eyes were pitch black, revealing a strange appearance, bringing with it a terrifying cold light. His mouth was continuously chanting incantations, the sound of incantations sounding out in waves. "You're not a human." The old man struggled with all his might, and a strong light burst out from the smoke. His soul was forcibly pulled out by Jiang Xiu. The old man was terrified. He had never heard of anyone who had such an extraordinary method, to actually use the smoke to directly grab a person's soul. Ha ha ha. Jiang Xiu laughed excitedly. Under the terrified gaze of the old man, Jiang Xiu opened his mouth and took a deep breath. The surrounding light was sucked into his mouth. He actually wanted to directly swallow the soul. This time it was truly incredible. Ah! The old man was scared out of his wits, and he screamed loudly. The suction force from Jiang Xiu's mouth became more and more intense, and an incomparably dazzling light burst out from his mouth, illuminating the whole tea room. However, in the next second, Jiang Xiu's face suddenly became strange, and the light dimmed, and in a flash it became pitch black. The soul took the opportunity to escape, and the smoke suddenly gathered on the statue mask and disappeared without a trace. Damn it! Jiang Xiu's eyes flashed with anger. In that instant, his divine energy was unable to continue. The spirit-devouring technique was an extremely high-level divine technique. It could swallow souls and greatly nourish the divine body. It was very likely that it could allow him to quickly enter the third mystic and form the third divine pattern. However, the spiritual cultivation forgot that he was no longer the spiritual cultivation of the past, and his current divine energy was not enough for him to swallow a soul. The result was that half of the divine technique was used, and his divine energy was unable to continue, and his opponent escaped. Bang! With a crisp sound, the statue placed on the table cracked and broke into two halves. This action was a bit like patching up a hole. That person was probably scared out of his wits, and who wouldn't be scared? Suddenly having his soul grabbed and eaten was simply a nightmare. Humph! Jiang Xiu was angry that he had missed a chance to raise his cultivation. None of the prey that I've set my eyes on has ever been able to escape. He picked up the shattered statue mask, and the remaining divine energy on it had completely disappeared. Right now, the statue mask could only be considered scrap metal. The good thing was that it was made of bronze, and with its age, Tang Jinshan could wrap it up and pass it off as an ancient magical treasure. He might be able to swindle 1 or 2 million out of it. Throwing the mask aside, he returned to his room and began to cultivate. It didn't take long for him to absorb the remnant soul energy in the pearl, and then he began to refine his divine energy. He chose the most orthodox divine cultivation technique, the Tao Heart Divine Seed Technique. The Tao Heart Divine Seed Technique was the most primitive way to refine divine energy. It was like a seed that was planted and then sprouted again. After it matured, everything would be concentrated on a single seed. And then the seed would be planted again, and it would sprout and grow again. This process repeated over and over again, continuously refining divine energy. Pop, 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 pop. His blood was boiling like water. Jiang Xiu was slightly surprised. When he condensed the divine energy in his body into a seed and planted it on top of his divine energy, the speed at which it grew was beyond his expectations. According to his estimation, it would take at least an hour, but it seemed to have only taken a few minutes. After planting the seed, the speed at which his divine energy grew again was also beyond his imagination. This is truly a surprise to this venerable. Jiang Xiu's body was actually very suitable for this kind of purification technique. Feeling the rapid cultivation speed, even the spiritual cultivation couldn't help but reveal a joyful smile. The speed of cultivation was linked to one's talent. The faster the cultivation speed, the higher the level of the divine body Jiang Xiu would awaken. Although it was impossible to judge the potential of a divine cultivator in the early stages, and how far he could grow in the end, it was definitely a very good sign. This made Jiang Xiu, a cultivation maniac, even more interested. When he completed the first cycle of cultivation, the purity of his divine energy made a qualitative leap. The blood in his body vibrated like tiny particles of dust, as if it was trying to break free from some kind of shackle. Evolving. The spiritual cultivation immediately became nervous. But before he could even react, with a boom, his Protoss bloodline and blood essence seemed to explode, and a powerful force spontaneously arose. The divine energy in his body suddenly increased by a large margin. If someone saw Jiang Xiu at this moment, his entire body was bursting with a layer of flame-like light. Looks like this divine body is indeed not bad. Jiang Xiu could be considered experienced and knowledgeable, but he had never heard of a divine body that could be awakened by purifying divine energy. It would only appear if one had encountered a long bottleneck, and the last time he had broken through was only a week ago. Could it be that I took the wrong path in the past? According to this speed, it was much faster than cultivation. Even when Jiang Xiu had just arrived at the Tianwu continent, and displayed an incomparably monstrous cultivation talent that made countless geniuses bow their heads, his cultivation speed wasn't this fast. What is going on? As expected, a new divine vein appeared on Jiang Xiu's arm. There were already 3 divine veins on his arm, and they were placed without any pattern. This was another good sign. If the divine body was weak, there would be fewer divine veins and fewer veins. The 3 veins could more or less be seen, but now he couldn't see anything at all. This meant that there were now more veins on the divine body, and naturally, it was even more extraordinary. Is the Protoss bloodline of the people on Earth this strong? The spiritual energy on Earth had withered, and there were no immortal cultivators. Everyone was immortal. Logically speaking, even if their ancestors were Protoss, they couldn't be that strong. It was precisely because of this idea that Jiang Xiu felt very helpless when he chose to become a divine cultivator, but now it seemed that this was not the case at all. This doesn't make sense. There was one thing that Jiang Xiu was certain of. The history of Earth was very long, and the history of mankind alone was tens of thousands of years. It was said that mankind on Earth had been destroyed twice. Of course, these were all groundless inferences made by scientists. It can't be that those scientists guessed correctly, right? Unknowingly, the sky outside was already bright. When he looked at the time, it was already 9 o'clock in the morning. He was late for class, but spiritual cultivation didn't want to be an obedient child. He took his time to wash up before leaving the house. The villa was far away from the school. After Jiang Xiu entered a 5-star hotel and had a luxurious breakfast, the morning classes were already over by the time he arrived at school. When he entered the classroom, Yi Bing inconspicuously approached him and said, What's wrong? Are you so scared by me that you don't dare to come to school? It wasn't uncommon for a student to threaten to beat up another student, and that student was too scared to come to school. This morning, When Yi Bing saw that Jiang Xiu didn't come to school, this image flashed through her mind. She felt that she had become a bad student, and her heart was filled with guilt for causing her classmates to be too scared to come to school. When she saw Jiang Xiu appear, she finally heaved a sigh of relief. She planned to cancel her very frightening sentence of, "I'll beat you up every time I see you." Jiang Xiu looked at the girl in front of him who was unbelievably beautiful and stupid, and said, "I'm so scared." He was really scared. He was scared to death because of his stupidity. Yi Bing said, "It's good that you know how to be scared. Let's see if you still dare to provoke me in the future. I'll let you off for now, but don't block me near my house in the future. If there's anything, send me a text message." After she finished speaking, she fiddled with her long black hair and walked away proudly. Ignorant, extremely stupid. The following days passed peacefully, and classes were as usual. However, the college entrance exam was approaching, and the learning atmosphere in the class became more and more tense. Under the influence of this atmosphere, Jiang Xiu also picked up a book for the first time and took a few glances at it. With the Protoss's memory and comprehension ability, he could even comprehend the heavenly Tao, let alone memorizing a few words and equations. On this day, Jiang Xiu was in class as usual when Tang Wenchong called him. The heavenly Tao's Tao soldier ceremony was about to begin. Chapter 57. The East Continent was south of Jiang City and close to the sea. 70% of the land was mountains, and only 30% was farmland. Hundreds of years ago, the Heavenly Tao sect emerged from a great natural disaster here, leaving behind very strong historical relics. There were many temples of the Heavenly Tao sect located on the mountainsides of the East Continent. The 3 words Heavenly Tao sect were also written on the temples of each village. The day of the Heavenly Tao sect's Tao soldier ceremony was called the All Tao Festival by the people here. This time, Tang Zhinshan did not come. He was old and had a broken arm. He could not withstand the torment of the journey, so Tang Wenchong accompanied him. After the car entered the East Continent, it began to take a detour around the mountain roads. Compared to Jiang City, this place was more than 10 years behind. Many movies and TV shows from the 1980s and 1990s would even be filmed here. This day was not only the All Tao Festival. Many underground forces in Jiangnan would rush here. It was also the battle for the king of the underground forces in Jiang City. "Young Master Tang, you're finally here." Before the Tang family came here, everything was naturally arranged. The car drove to a place that looked like a village temple and an ancestral hall. Before the car stopped, a middle-aged man ran over. It was Dalei. There was a beautiful woman in her 30s beside him. She should be a local and was here to receive him. "Young Master Tang." When he saw Jiang Xiu coming down, Dalei greeted him respectfully, "Mr. Jiang." Seeing this, the beautiful woman with a clear mind looked at Jiang Xiu with sparkling eyes. She thought that this must be a big shot. She even realized that even Tang Wenchong was standing behind him. From the way he stood, the group of people seemed to respect him. "Master Lei, this is?" Dalei said, "Jiang Luoxia, Mr. Jiang." He was unwilling to introduce Jiang Xiu to this beautiful woman. He felt that she was not qualified. However, in front of Jiang Xiu, he did not dare to be rash. He could only introduce him as such. "So it's Mr. Jiang. It's an honor to have Mr. Jiang here." "You're welcome," Jiang Xiu said. This was an ordinary polite phrase, but when it came from Jiang Xiu, who despised everything, it surprised Tang Wenchong and Dalei. They looked at each other. When they walked inside, Dalei said softly, "Young master, something's not right. Mr. Jiang doesn't care about anyone, but he's polite to this woman. Could it be that Mr. Jiang has taken a fancy to her? I noticed that Mr. Jiang's eyes were looking at her for a while." Tang Wenchong said, "Mr. Jiang likes this style?" The beautiful woman was in her 30s, which was the most mature age for women. She wore a well-fitting cheongsam, which accentuated her curvaceous figure. The slit extended all the way to her thighs, revealing her shining white thighs. She wore a pair of black flats, which made her look somewhat charming. Both of them smiled knowingly. In his mind, he planned to handle this matter properly. Mr. Jiang, this way. However, Jiang Xiu said, I'm familiar with the roads here. So Mr. Jiang has been here before. Jiang Xiu had not only been here before, but he had spent most of his childhood here. Speaking of which, he had a lot of fate with Dongzhou. And all of this fate came from when he was young. At that time, his family was still very rich. Jiang Yi was very busy, and so was Lin Yueling. There was no one to take care of little Jiang Xiu, so they found a nanny. The nanny was from Dongzhou. After the Jiang family's accident, Lin Yueling was too busy to take care of herself. It was this nanny who remembered Jiang Yi's family's past kindness, so she took care of Jiang Xiu for them. Jiang Xiu studied here from primary school to the second year of junior high school. It was not until Jiang Yi was released from prison that he moved back to Jiang City to prepare for the high school entrance examination in the third year of junior high school. However, Jiang Xiu had never heard of the All Dao Festival. Perhaps it was because he was young back then, and this event was carried out secretly. Stepping into the mountains, there were green mountains and clear rivers. More than 3,000 years seemed like a lifetime ago, but nothing had changed here. You don't have to follow me. I'll go by myself. The corners of his mouth raised into a smile. Of course, he was going to find his buddies who had grown up with him. Tang Wencheng anxiously called out, Mr. Jiang. However, Jiang Xiu had already stepped onto the mountain and left. I wonder how Xiang's mother is, and how Chu Qianqing and the others are doing. Are you guys all right? When Chu Qianqing saw Jiang Xiu, he rushed up in a few big steps and punched him in the chest. He said angrily, You brat, you finally know how to come back. You've been gone for more than 3 years. Jiang Xiu said with a smile, Aren't I back now? In his heart he thought, It's been more than 3,000 years. Who would have thought that I would be able to return to this place again? Okay. You know that young Master Xiu went to study in Jiang City, and entered the best second high school in Jiang City, and he's about to take the college entrance examination. A young man next to him was about the same age as Jiang Xiu. His name was Danian. You brat. Chu Qianqing was unwilling to give up and punched him again. He grew up with Jiang Xiu and was the son of Xiang's sister-in-law. Before Jiang Yi's accident, he also lived with the Jiang family. Jiang Xiu lacked companions, so the two children could play together very well. Looking at these companions, a thought flashed through Spiritual Cultivation's mind. It was really good to be reborn. In his previous life, after the Jiang family's accident, Jiang Xiu was very down and out. He didn't have the face to come back. Later, he lost contact with Chu Qianqing. Many people were like this. Childhood playmates all had their own worlds when they grew up and gradually drifted apart. They only hid the happiness of growing up in their hearts forever. Danian patted a small car next to him and said, How is it? Jiang Xiu made a surprised expression and said, Not bad, young Master Nian. You can even drive a car. You've become a car owner. Danian's father was a village official and had a lot of money. One of the most important sources of income was the Wan Dao Festival. Danian said, Just over 200,000 yuan. It's inconvenient to go in and out of the mountains without a car. In the East Continent, Danian could be considered a second-generation young master. Although he might be a third or fourth-tier young master, he was still awesome. Get in the car and call a few girls who used to play with us. Let's go to a restaurant. When Chu Qianqing heard that they were going to a restaurant, he became excited. Hey, I was waiting for young Master Nian to say that. Today, let's go eat barbecue. Min's family made a farmhouse barbecue. It's delicious. Let's go. Sitting in the car, Danian drove and talked at the same time. Young Master Xiu, you came to the right place. Do you remember when we were young, there were a few days when the adults didn't let us go out? You can see it now. I'll definitely let you see it. Jiang Xiu smiled faintly. He already knew what it was. Chu Qianqing also said, That's right, young Master Xiu. The first time I saw it, I was dumbfounded. A lot of big shots came. They dropped some money between their fingers. It's enough for us to live for a year. Take it and gamble. If we're lucky, we'll get tens of thousands. The car stopped at the barbecue restaurant. The two beauties were already waiting at the door. One of them was a tall girl. She was more than 7 meters tall. She wore tight jeans that hugged her buttocks tightly. Her legs were straight. The other one was slightly shorter. She was also about 1.65 meters tall. Her skin was snow-white and her appearance was elegant and refined like a lily. The tall one was Xiaomin. The beautiful one was Chen Shui. The water in the East Continent was very nourishing. It was a place that produced beautiful women. Two great beauties, look who's here. When Xiaomin saw Jiang Xiu, she shouted, "Jiang Xiu, you little brat. You still dare to come back. See how I'll deal with you." When spiritual cultivation left, she was in the second year of junior high. Girls developed early. Xiaomin was already tall. At that time, she was almost half a head taller than Jiang Xiu. Chen Shui was much more refined. She covered her mouth and chuckled. Slap. Xiaomin was chasing after Jiang Xiu. Chu Qianqing looked at her round butt and boldly slapped it. Xiaomin screamed. "You bullied my brother. Are you looking for a beating? Damn you, Qianqing. How dare you take advantage of me?" Xiaomin changed her target and was about to chase after Chu Qianqing. Danian wretchedly signaled Jiang Xiu to take the opportunity to hit Xiaomin's butt. Jiang Xiu quickly shook his head. He thought, why would I take advantage of a girl like this? When Danian saw that he wasn't going to make a move, he slapped Xiaomin's round butt. Xiaomin screamed again. She was already so old. Of course, he couldn't hit her. However, the children in the countryside were more wild. They seemed to enjoy it. Toxic youth. Chen Shui, help. Xiaomin gritted her teeth in anger. Chen Shui hurriedly shook her head. At this moment, a group of people was walking along the mountain path. Each of them had an extraordinary aura. It was obvious that they all had great backgrounds. The one walking at the front was actually Yi Bing's biological father, Yi Ilyang. Beside him was that old man. When Yi Ilyang saw Jiang Xiu, he was stunned. Jiang Xiu also saw him. Yi Ilyang frowned. "Why are you here?" Chapter 58. Jiang Xiu put away the kind smile he used to treat his childhood friend, and didn't have the slightest intention of replying. Yi Ilyang saw Jiang Xiu's arrogance and was very annoyed in his heart. He originally wanted to teach him a lesson, but in front of so many people, he didn't want to lower his status. He coldly said, "This is not a place for you to stay." On the day of the All Dao festival in the eastern state, it was not a big deal to kill someone on the blacklist. That was why the adults in the village didn't let the children watch the All Dao festival. Behind Yi Ilyang, there were many strong people besides Elder Lin. These people all had a terrible murderous aura. When their eyes swept over you, it made you shudder. Seeing these big shots, Chu Qianqing and the others were silent. They didn't dare to make a sound. "You're on your own." Yi Ilyang didn't look at Jiang Xiu anymore. He walked past them with an arrogant expression. Jiang Xiu and the others could only salute him with their eyes. "Boss Yi, is he a member of the Yi family?" Yi Ilyang sneered and said disdainfully, "Him? Is he worthy? He's not even qualified to guard the door of the Yi family." Everyone suddenly understood. If they wanted to follow Yi Ilyang and rely on the Yi family, they had to know the Yi family's people's network. They understood when Yi Ilyang said that. An insignificant person, even Boss Yi didn't like him. When they were far away, Chu Qianqing and the others came back to their senses. Danian said, "Young Master Xiu, do you know him?" Jiang Xiu said casually, "I've seen him once." "What a pity." Danian sighed and pointed to the last person in Yi Ilyang's group. "Do you see the person at the back? He's Ao Fei from Lijiao in the eastern state. He's the #1 gangster in the eastern state." When he said that, the faces of the people present changed. He's Ao Fei. Even Jiang Xiu had an impression of this person. When he was still studying here, Ao Fei was a famous gangster in the eastern state. At that time, the youth was afraid and curious about such a person. Danian nodded solemnly. "That's right, it's him. When I saw him, he was surrounded by people, but he was following behind that man like a lackey." "Then how strong is this man?" Everyone present was shocked beyond words. Danian shook his head regretfully and said, "That's why I said it's a pity. If young Master Xiu can make friends with that man, you will definitely have a meteoric rise and your achievements will be limitless." Jiang Xiu smiled and declined to comment. Chu Qianqing said, "Young Master Nian is right. Nowadays, having a backer is really important. I'll take you to make a fortune later." Jiang Xiu looked over in surprise. Chu Qianqing winked at him mysteriously, which made Jiang Xiu confused. The other three also acted strangely. "But you have to be prepared," Jiang Xiu asked. "What do you mean?" Danian acted as if he didn't hear it and sat down by himself. Little Min and Chen Shui's pretty faces were slightly pale. Little Min said, "Why don't we not take the little guy? Not everyone can stand it." Little Min looked at Jiang Xiu. At this time, she had the time to seriously size up Jiang Xiu. She found that Jiang Xiu had grown a lot taller. In the past, she was half a head taller than Jiang Xiu. Now Jiang Xiu was half a head taller than her. He was even taller than Chu Qianqing and Danian. In addition, he had become more handsome. His face was as resolute as marble, and his eyes were as dark as night. He had become a rare handsome man. She felt strange and couldn't help but look at him a few more times. Jiang Xiu asked, "How do you make a fortune?" Chu Qianqing looked around, and made sure that no one was paying attention. He lowered his voice and said, "Have you seen someone kill someone?" Clang. The glass in Chen Shui's hand fell to the ground and shattered. Her pretty face became paler and paler. She hurriedly picked up the broken glass. Little Min also squatted down to help. "What do you mean?" Chu Qianqing said, "The All Dao Festival is a battle for the top of the blacklist. The people on the stage don't care if they live or die. The bets outside are even more frightening. Any random round can cost thousands of years, or even hundreds of millions. If you bring a little capital and bet with others, you can make 100 times more in a day." Jiang Xiu said in his heart, "So that's how it is. Did you see young Master Nian's car? Did you think that his father bought it for him? No, he used his money to bet it." Chu Qianqing's eyes lit up when he said this. Jiang Xiu said, "Then let's go and take a look." From the reaction of the two girls, the scene must be very bloody and cruel. Betting money on the competition was enough to make people go crazy, not to mention betting their lives. "Young Master Nian, do you know how to go later?" Danian shook his head and said, "I'm not going. The All Dao Festival is here. With so many things, the old man will definitely look for me. You go with Jiang Xiu. After that, come to my house to drink." Little Min also didn't plan to go. She said that she had something to do at home. "I'll go." Jiang Xiu looked at Chen Shui in surprise. Chen Shui had become more and more beautiful. Compared to 3 years ago, she was like a tightly closed lily that had opened its stamen. It was just that her delicate face was now very pale. "I need money." After eating and drinking to their fill, the 2 boys and 1 girl got up and set off. The battle for the top of the black list was held in the village's temple. It was originally a place where gods were worshipped, but now it was a bloody place. "Hey, you guys in front." Just as they were walking, Jiang Xiu and the others heard someone calling them. They couldn't help but turn their heads to look. It was a group of youths. There were both boys and girls. They were dressed fashionably, and their outfits were worth at least 100,000 yuan. One look, and one could tell that they were outsiders. "You guys are locals, right?" The one who spoke was a girl. Her voice was crisp and pleasant to the ears. It was very comfortable to listen to. She had a northern accent that sounded a bit like the capital's accent. Jiang Xiu looked back and couldn't help but be stunned. The girl was about 1.68 meters tall. She wore a white cap and had long black hair. She had a very athletic aura. Coupled with her beautiful face, she was very attractive. One couldn't help but take a few more glances. It was her. I didn't expect to meet her here. Lin Mi, the capital's Lin family's young miss. She was also Jiang Xiu's cousin. She was his uncle's daughter and his cousin. In his previous life, Jiang Xiu only had the chance to meet her when he entered the capital. Chu Qianqing replied, "That's right. What's the matter?" Lin Mi's gaze swept over Jiang Xiu and the others. She asked, "Do you know where the battle for the top of the black list will be held?" The battle for the top of the black list was to fight for an underground king. In the past, it was called a gathering of Taoist soldiers. Gradually, its nature changed and it became a battle for the top of the black list. The battle could be fought by oneself, subordinates, or aides. It would be a fight to the death. Because it was a matter of killing, very few people knew about it. Those who knew about it were all people in the underworld. I know, the girl said. Lead the way. There will be plenty of benefits for you. Pay up first. Lin Mi motioned to the people behind her. The people behind her took out a stack of money and stuffed it over. It looked like it was 1 or 2,000 yuan. Seeing this, Chu Qianqing grinned. He took the money and patted it in his hand. Follow me. The man who handed over the money sneered when he saw this. You're just a peasant from the mountains. You're so happy with this little money. Mimi, what's so interesting about this battle for the top of the blacklist? It's all unorthodox and not worth mentioning. Why did you come all the way here to watch? There are many similar competitions in the capital. The man said. I'm afraid you'll be disappointed. Another young man on the side said. That's right. There are underground fists everywhere. Of course, the one with the highest level is the Jing sect. Listening to their bragging, the real martial arts masters don't even bother to come here. Brother, when you go up later, you'll directly defeat them. Jiang Xiu glanced at the two people. They were just martial artists who hadn't even cultivated internal strength. They probably hadn't come into contact with real masters. They might be martial arts masters. They didn't know that this was a place for killing. Lin Mi said, the blacklist battle in the eastern state is very popular underground. It's rare that I have time, so of course I have to see it. And the money involved is not small. Chu Qianqing, who was leading the way, counted the money as he walked. Then he divided it with Jiang Xiu and Chen Shui. It was about 500 or 600 yuan each. Jiang Xiu took the money and gave it to Chen Shui. Chen Shui said in surprise, Why are you giving it to me? Aren't you short of money? Chen Shui hesitated for a moment. She bit her lip and reached out to take it. She said thank you. Lin Mi saw all of this and couldn't help but look at Jiang Xiu. At this time, she didn't know who this person was. She would never have thought that the person in front of her was the son of her aunt who ran away from home. The village temple wasn't far. It was very noisy inside, and there were continuous cheers. Chapter 59. After successfully bringing Lin Mi and the others to the temple, the mission was completed. However, just as they reached the entrance of the temple, someone inside shouted, Make way, make way. A group of youths carried out a young man covered in blood with a broken arm and leg on a stretcher. A woman was taking care of him and said with a sorrowful face, His arms and legs are all broken. Even if he is cured, he will still be a cripple. Seeing this woman, Jiang Xiu's heart trembled. The woman was in her early 50s, but her body was very strong. She cried out, Sister Xiang. She was the nanny who had taken care of Jiang Xiu for many years, Chu Qianqing's mother. Sister Xiang turned her head and saw a face full of wrinkles. She was shocked. Minor repairs. Even though they had not seen each other for 3 years, Sister Xiang still recognized him at a glance. Then her surprised face turned cold. She shouted at Chu Qianqing. Little bastard, why did you bring minor repairs to a place like this? Quickly take him away. A robust old man at the side said. Is this the child who is staying with your family? Jiang Xiu still recognized him. He was the village chief of Shannan village. Everyone called him Old Iron Head. He held a pipe and walked around. Yes, the village chief still remembers me. Beside the old village chief, there were also many able-bodied men of the village. You are Jiang Xiu, right? Jiang Xiu said. Yes. Make way, make way. There was another commotion in the crowd. Another young man covered in blood with a broken arm and leg was carried out. What, did you lose again? Sister Xiang did not have time to teach her son and Jiang Xiu a lesson. Jiang Xiu asked, What happened? Chu Qianqing said, In the past 2 years our village and Shanbei village had a fierce conflict because of the All Dao festival. A few lives were lost. In order to solve the problem, both sides agreed to be on the blacklist. Whoever wins will be disqualified from the All Dao festival. This is related to our livelihood, so we have formed a grudge. Everyone is fighting with their lives. In the eastern state, the people were known for their ferocity. Fights between villages had been a common occurrence since the 70s. and it was common for people to die at the sight of blood. Excuse me, excuse me. When the man was carried away, Jiang Xiu glanced at him. The bones in his cheeks were distorted, and the man had completely fainted. Sigh, 3 people have already been injured. Xiang Sa sighed and said helplessly, our village is not as rich as Shanbei village. We can't hire a master. After saying that, she realized that the person she was complaining to was Jiang Xiu. She came back to her senses and said, minor repairs. Why are you here? Do your parents know? Jiang Xiu said, they don't know. If he said that he knew, it would be embarrassing if Xiang Sa called and asked about it, so he might as well admit it. Auntie Xiang said, and you brat, how dare you bring minor repairs to a place like this? I'll deal with you when we get home. Chu Qianqing said, Mom, I'm helping minor repairs to win some money. Xiang Sa muttered to herself. She knew Jiang Xiu's family situation better than anyone else. They were originally a wealthy family, but they had fallen overnight. Now they were selling fruits in the city, and their income was very limited. She said helplessly, let's go in together. After entering the temple, there were waves of screams and shouts. A new battle was underway. Jiang Xiu was calm and at ease, but Chen Shui's face was completely pale. Yesterday she came to take a look, but she only saw a little. The scene of hand-to-hand combat made her hair stand on end. When she saw blood, she ran away. But today, she came to earn money. Her little hand held the money, but it was trembling violently. The hired thug from Shannon village couldn't take it anymore. He was pressed to the ground and punched in the head. It was very bloody. We're going to lose again. Xiang Sa said helplessly as she looked at the scene. Jiang Xiu said, if we lose, will it have a big impact? Is it? Chu Qianqing's eyes opened wide. After the Dao soldier gathering turned into a blacklist battle, the nature of the battle has changed. Aristocratic families, gangs, sects, and many underground powers will fight to the death. Their lives are all on the line, so why would they keep their money? It's the same as putting all their lives on the line. Although the conflict between our 2 villages isn't enough to put all our lives on the line, it is more or less the same. Do you think it will have a big impact? It was indeed very cruel. This was completely different from the current harmonious society. Naturally, it wasn't something that was born now. It would only be born in times of disaster. It was a product of the Tao of Heaven. Make way, make way. The person who lost was carried out on a stretcher. Chu Qianqing said, Mom, is the next one Chang's brother Chen Yibing? Xiang Sa said, yes, it is Chen Yibing. Is he very strong? Xiang Sa said, our Shannon village spent a lot of money to invite him. This time, we are relying on him. I hope he can win. Jiang Xiu said to Xiang Sa, if you don't have much confidence, I can help. Xiang Sa was frightened. What nonsense was this child saying? I appreciate your kindness, but that's fighting on the line. Didn't you see what happened to those people? They were lucky to have broken limbs. If they were unlucky, they would have died on the spot. With your small body, you should stay and serve your parents. Jiang Xiu's hair flew up. His eyes were as deep as the abyss. He said in a low voice, Xiang Sa, I am really strong. I can really fight. This kind of battle is like an ant. You can't even withstand a single blow. Xiang Sa didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Okay, stop fooling around. Stay here. Jiang Xiu said, Xiang Sa, stay here. Xiu was a bit depressed. Why was this sovereign speaking so seriously? Yet he actually didn't believe him. Could it be that he thought this sovereign was lying to him? Preposterous, simply preposterous. Brother Bing, Brother Bing. Chen Yibing was a little over 1.8 meters tall. His whole body was muscular, and there was a tiger tattoo on his naked body. His face was rough, and there was a glaring scar on his forehead, which made him look even more ferocious. He was in his 20s or 30s. His eyes were not big, but there was a fierce light in them. At first glance, one could tell that he was a very fierce person. Jiang Xiu asked unhappily, Xiang Sa, how much did the village spend to invite him? 3 million. Jiang Xiu took a deep breath. This was too preposterous. A dignified cultivation god who had 0 appearance fees had actually been rejected. Instead, they had to spend 3 million to invite such a person. Chu Qianqing took out all the money he had with him. There was a total of more than 10,000 yuan. He bet all of it on Chen Yibing. Chen Shui gritted her teeth and bet all the 3,000 yuan she had. Suddenly, a hand reached out and pressed on the money. It was Jiang Xiu. You can't bet. You will lose. Jiang Xiu had just seen the master invited by Shanbei village. The other party was an internal strength master, while Chen Yibing had not really cultivated internal strength. If there was no accident, Chen Yibing would lose. Ba. You're going to ba. The battle was imminent. Don't say such discouraging words. Really? Before she finished speaking, the nervous Chen Shui covered her mouth and said fiercely, Little tot, if you talk nonsense again, I will beat you. Jiang Xiu. Spiritual cultivation was very angry and the consequences were very serious. I was kind enough to help you, but you didn't believe me. After the duel began, the people of Shannon village were very nervous. We must win. We must win. Chu Qianqing and Chen Shui put all their money on it. They would either succeed or die trying. Brother Bing, come on. Jiang Xiu looked at the field and said softly, 7 moves. Internal strength warriors were completely different from martial artists. If an ordinary martial artist were to use a saber to hack a large rock, no matter how strong he was, the rock would at most be slightly damaged. However, internal strength warriors, especially those with profound skills, could use a saber to completely split a rock that was 10 or even 20 centimeters thick. It was obvious that the strength gap between the two was huge. Bang! Both fists collided with each other. With a cracking sound, Chen Yibing took a step back with a pained expression on his face. His clenched fists trembled violently. In that instant, he felt a surge of energy surging through him like a tidal wave. It was as if his bones had been shaken to pieces. Ah! The other party roared and rose into the air. Chen Yibing hurriedly turned sideways and kicked out at the same time. The other party came down from the air and did not dodge. He directly pressed his elbow on Chen Yibing's thigh. Chen Yibing screamed in pain. 2 moves. Jiang Xiu did not look at the stage again. The Shannon village became silent. The confidence just now disappeared without a trace. Even a blind man could see that Chen Yibing was no match for the other party. Brother Bing, you won't lose. Chen Shui's voice was trembling. I think so. Chu Qianqing was about to cry. He had bet Quan Fu's value on him. Ah! With a scream, Chen Yibing was kicked several meters away. He was unconscious on the spot. His hands and feet were broken. No one knew whether he was dead or alive. It was exactly 7 moves. Quick, take him down. Make way. The village chief and some backbones of the Shannon village were stunned. Their last hope had been lost. It was over. It was over. The old village chief's legs were weak, and he fell to the ground. The people of Shanbei village cheered loudly. Old Tai, your Shannon village lost. From now on, you are not allowed to interfere in the business of Taoism. Otherwise, I will beat you every time I see you. But you have no money to do any more business. Ha ha ha, the people of Shanbei village laughed wildly. Smash all the shops in Shannon. Leave nothing behind. Take away all the useful things. Okay. The villagers of Shannon village looked as if they had lost their parents. Aunt Xiang's face was also pale. She said helplessly, We tried our best. Shannon tried our best. We can only blame ourselves for not being able to hire a real master. Many young people could not help crying. They stubbornly held back their tears. Chu Qianqing and Chen Shui were desperate. They had lost their money and their livelihood. They did not know how to live in Shannon village. Maybe the whole village would go out to work. It was conceivable that Shanbei would become richer, and Shannon would become poorer and poorer. But just when everyone was in despair, a voice came. Who said there is no one in Shannon? Jiang Xiu. He strode towards the center of the field. Sister Xiang and Chu Qianqing cried out in shock. Is he crazy? Ha! Damien is the boy who led us here. Chapter 60. This shock was truly incredible. What kind of joke was this? Was this a child playing house? This was putting his life on the line. If he went up, he would be beaten to death. Xiang Sa cried out in panic. Minor repairs. Come back. Jiang Xiu sneered in his heart. You actually don't believe me? Now I'll show you what it means to be the headmaster of the Tianxing school, the overlord of the immortal martial continent for 3,000 years. He took a step forward and dark clouds began to gather in the sky outside of the temple. He took another step forward and lightning flashed in the clouds. Quick, Tianxing, quickly pull the minor repairs back. Without waiting for Xiang Sa's orders, Chu Tianxing had already rushed up. He was cursing Jiang Xiu in his heart for being an idiot. He grabbed onto Jiang Xiu and refused to let him go up. Chen Shui blocked his path and pressed her slender hands against Jiang Xiu's strong chest. Even if he lost all his money and his livelihood, at least he would still have his life. Jiang Xiu said, "What are you doing?" His heart raged. "I want to act pretentious. Nobody can stop me. Minor repairs? Are you crazy? Calm down." Several of the strong men in the village saw that the situation was not right and rushed up to hold on to Jiang Xiu. "We lost. We know that you can't take this lying down for the sake of the village. But we can't just throw away our lives. Even Chen Yibing is not his opponent. If you go up, you'll just be giving him a free win. What's the difference between that and throwing away your life?" The village chief helplessly sighed. "This child is a good child. He's just a bit too naive." Jiang Xiu said, "Throwing away my life? Ha ha ha, ignorant stupid. Let go of me. I'm going to go up and destroy that ant." Xiang Sa anxiously shouted, "Quickly pull him back, pull him back." She was really worried that Jiang Xiu would break free and rush up the stage. When a person loses their mind, they would often do crazy things. If something really happened to Jiang Xiu, how would she explain it to Lin Yueling and her husband? In the distance, Lin Mi and the others shook their heads helplessly. What a ridiculous farce. However, Lin Mi was curiously sizing up Jiang Xiu. She felt that this young man was quite interesting. First, he gave the money he earned to his female companion. Then, because his village was defeated, he went up to fight even though he knew that he was no match for them. "Uncle Fu, what do you think of this person?" Among this group of young people, there was a person who wasn't very tall and was wearing a black sweater. If one looked closely, they would realize that this person wasn't young. It was just that he was dressed young and used a sweater to cover his face. In fact, he was in his 50s or even older. He has no cultivation at all, but he seems to have a good character. At least he's magnanimous and not greedy. His sense of honor isn't bad either. Lin Mi nodded. "That's right. What does young miss mean?" Lin Mi looked directly at Jiang Xiu in the distance and said, "In this day and age, there are many smart people, talented people, and powerful people, but there are not many loyal people. Our Lin family needs people like this to sacrifice their lives for us at critical times." Uncle Fu said, "Young miss, do you want to take him into the Lin family?" Lin Mi smiled faintly. "Why not?" Uncle Fu's expression changed drastically as he said in astonishment, "This brat this." His ancestors must have spouted smoke. He actually had the chance to enter the Lin clan. You have to know how much effort I put in to enter the Lin clan. And this brat actually. Lin Mi walked over. "Do you have something to say?" Lin Mi said, "Do you want to win?" Her gaze was fixed on Jiang Xiu's face. She unexpectedly found that although Jiang Xiu's clothes weren't eye-catching, he was actually very handsome. He had a strange temperament that she couldn't put her finger on, but there was a sense of mystery about him. Jiang Xiu said, "Of course. As long as he made a move, a mere inner strength master was nothing to him." Lin Mi said proudly, "I can help you." Jiang Xiu didn't need anyone's help, but he was curious as to why Lin Mi wanted to help him. He couldn't help but think that she couldn't have recognized him, right? But thinking about it carefully, he felt that this possibility was zero. In his previous life, when he went to the capital to see Lin Mi didn't recognize him. This meant that Lin Mi had never seen him before. How could she recognize him at this moment? "However, I have a condition," Jiang Xiu said curiously. "Tell me." Lin Mi said, "I will help you win this battle and save your village from this disaster, so that you can live a good life. But you have to come with me and pledge your loyalty to my Lin family." "My Lin family will use you. The several youths beside Lin Mi looked at Jiang Xiu differently. Their eyes were filled with envy. This was something that many people dreamed of. Although he had become a servant, it depended on whose servant he was. How could an emperor's servant compare to an ordinary person's servant? The Lin family was powerful. Even if he was a servant, he would still be respected by others. Just like Uncle Fu, who stood beside Lin Mi. Who would dare to not respect him? What did you say? However, they didn't notice that Jiang Xiu's mysterious eyes had turned into cold, killing intent. He looked at Lin Mi as if he was looking at a dead person. The Lin family, one of the 10 most handsome men in the capital, the Lin family. Wah! There was a sudden uproar. Who didn't know of the 10 most handsome men in the capital? However, most of them had already passed away. The Lin family was one of the few that were still alive. They were one of the top wealthy families in the country. Kid, you're in luck. Ha ha ha, I think this silly kid is so happy that he's turned silly. The man with the buzz cut who was with Lin Mi teased. To be able to enter the Lin family was the dream of many people. Many people went into the military, went into the government, and even went into business. Who didn't want to rely on a giant like the Lin family? Uncle Fu, who was behind Lin Mi, said, "Kid, what are you standing there for? Hurry up and thank the young lady." Lin Mi's gaze was indifferent. To Jiang Xiu, it had completely changed his poor and mediocre life. However, to Lin Mi, it was just a matter of lips touching lips. A strong sense of superiority exuded from her. Jiang Xiu looked up with a cold gaze. If you weren't a member of the Lin family, you would already be a dead man. To a powerful person like Jiang Xiu, letting him enter the family as a servant was a great humiliation. If it weren't for the fact that he cared about her relationship with Lin Yueling's school, Jiang Xiu would have blown him to smithereens on the spot, and even annihilated his entire family. What did you say? Lin Mi wondered if she had heard wrongly. Was he rejecting her? Looking at his angry expression, he seemed to have suffered a great humiliation. To be able to join the Lin family was a humiliation that many people dreamed of. You're very arrogant, but you don't seem to know what fate and opportunity are. This is an opportunity that can change your life, an opportunity that can make you a great person. What I've bestowed upon you is a bright future. Jiang Xiu smiled. His smile was full of contempt. Your so-called future is nothing but a pitiful joke in my eyes. Hua! The crowd burst into an uproar again. Look, even the Lin family, one of the 10 great generals, looked down on them. Oh my God, this person must be crazy. Impudent. Uncle Fu roared. In his eyes, Jiang Xiu was nothing more than a peasant from a remote village. A nobody that he didn't even spare a glance at. He believed that he was of a higher level than Jiang Xiu, but the opportunity that he viewed as glory was actually trampled on by Jiang Xiu. How could he accept this? Who do you think you are? How dare you look down on the Lin family? Lin Mi raised her hand slightly to signal Uncle Fu to calm down. However, her gaze was still fixed on Jiang Xiu's face. This is the first time I've heard someone say that the Lin family is a joke. However, who are you to say that? A small peasant from a remote village? Don't forget who you are and what you're doing. Look, all of you lost like stray dogs. The people of Shannon village lowered their heads in shame. They were indeed helpless in the current situation. Even if they fought with their lives on the line, they would not be able to change anything. However, the Lin family can solve this problem easily. No one doubted this point. For the Lin family, it was indeed easy to solve this problem. I'll ask you one last time. Will you join the Lin family? The Lin family had extended an olive branch to a small peasant from a remote village. However, they were rejected. How could the Lin family show their face? Aunt Xiang, Chu Qianqing, Chen Shui, and the others all nodded at him, urging him to agree quickly. This was his last chance. If he joined the Lin family, not only would he be able to solve the predicament of Shannon village, but he would also have a bright future. Jiang Xiu glanced at them coldly. I'll go to the Lin family. I'll definitely go. However, when I arrive at the Lin family, it will be the day when the Lin family kneels and repents. Chapter 61. What? Lin Mi's eyes were filled with murderous intent. The Lin family was so powerful that everyone would turn pale at the mention of it. This young man from a small village actually dared to say that he could trample the Lin family under his feet. Wow, the whole temple was in an uproar. Was this person crazy? If you don't want to, then refuse. Let's not talk about whether you have the ability to do so. Why did you have to slander the Lin family and make such a huge enemy for your disciple? Kill him for me. Miss Lin was burning with anger. Her chest was heaving violently, and she finally erupted like a volcano. Kill him. She was not referring to Jiang Xiu, who was standing in front of her. In her eyes, even if Jiang Xiu slandered the Lin family, he was just an ant. The Lin family could crush him as they wished. Even if she killed Jiang Xiu, how much face could she get back? Jiang Xiu did refuse her. If she wanted to get back face, she would make Jiang Xiu regret and beg on the ground. Therefore, she pointed at the man in the ring. Defeat the man from Shannon village in one move. Yes, Uncle Fu answered. His feet kicked, and his whole body rose into the air. He stepped on the shoulder of the short-haired young man in front of him. His whole body was like a soaring eagle, crossing several meters in the air and diving into the field. At the same time he said faintly, "One move." His fist had already blasted out. It swept out like a storm. The man was shocked and quickly counterattacked. However, he only felt that the opponent's fist was too heavy to resist. It was as if thousands of pounds of gravity were pressing down on him. His whole body was limp on the ground like mud. The man's head was hanging to one side. His pupils were dilated, and blood was flowing from his mouth. He was motionless. "Die, he's dead." Hiss. Everyone in the field sucked in a breath of cold air. Uncle Fu had already disappeared from the ring and returned to his previous position. Everything happened too fast and too suddenly. It was as if he had never moved. Fast as the wind, fast as lightning, like a ghost killing people. When they looked at him again, they couldn't help but feel scared. The inside of the temple became silent. Lin Mi's pretty face was covered with a layer of poverty. She took out a business card, strode forward with her long legs, and arrived in front of Jiang Xiu. Her eyes were arrogant as she stuffed the business card into Jiang Xiu's pocket, and then left without looking back. Uncle Fu and his entourage smiled coldly at Jiang Xiu before following after him. After leaving the temple, the crew-cut young man asked, "Mimi, are we just going to let that brat go?" His words were filled with unwillingness. He would rather Uncle Fu had killed that brat on the spot. Lin Mi said confidently, "A country boy doesn't know what the Lin family means." But after seeing Uncle Fu make a move, he respects the Lin family like a god. He will come to the imperial capital. He will kneel at the door of the Lin family and beg for mercy. The young man suddenly understood. "So, you left him your name card?" Lin Mi smiled faintly. "So we're leaving just like that?" Lin Mi said, "Leave? The real show hasn't started yet. The underground forces of Jiang City haven't changed yet. I want to see who will become the king of Jiang City's underground." After Lin Mi and her entourage left, the temple was once again in an uproar. How can this be? Originally, Shannon had already lost. But now the masters of Shanbei were killed. However, the people who did it were not to help Shannon, but because of Shannon. For a while they quarreled. And they couldn't argue at all. After leaving the temple, Chu Qianqing said, "Young Master Xiu, why don't you agree with the young lady of the Lin family? Many people can't wait to join the Lin family." This included Chu Qianqing. That was the Lin clan, one of the 10 marshals. As the saying goes, the gate of the prime minister is a third-rank official. If he were to go to the Lin clan to be a guard or a driver, he felt that he would be able to score 99 points in his life. What the hell are you thinking? Chu Qianqing felt very regretful. Many times in life, there was only one decision. If you missed it, you might return to mediocrity in your life. He thought that Jiang Xiu missed it. Chen Shui also echoed, "Yes." She looked at Jiang Xiu curiously. In the past, she felt that Jiang Xiu was very ordinary, even a little timid and introverted. She didn't expect that after not seeing him for 3 years, not only had he transformed into a handsome young man, even the Lin family had extended an olive branch to him. What was more shocking was that he actually rejected it. Jiang Xiu said, "I have the ability to surpass the heavens." I can cut through all obstacles and rise all the way. Crazy. At this time Jiang Xiu's phone rang. He looked at the caller ID and saw that it was Tang Wenchong calling. He saw that Jiang Xiu had been away for so long. Even when it was time for dinner, he still hadn't come back. Mr. Jiang. Where are you? Do you want us to send someone to pick you up? Jiang Xiu said. No. I'll find a place to stay tonight. Beside Tang Wenchong was a force from Jiang City. Beside him was Dalei and another person from the military side courtyard. He was a lieutenant colonel from the Wolf Army. His name was Tang Tao. There were a few people beside him. They were the representatives of the Tang family this time. If someone challenged the Tang family, they would fight. Okay, Mr. Jiang. Tomorrow, Mr. Jiang, please don't miss the gathering of Dao soldiers. Tang Tao, who was beside him, frowned when he saw the awe on Tang Wenchong's face unconsciously. Why did the descendants of the Tang family have to be so humble to a ruffian? What, Mr. Jiang? He's so arrogant. Dalei said. Brother Tao, that Mr. Jiang is amazing. I accidentally offended him. There were more than 300 brothers, and none of them could withstand a single blow. In less than 5 minutes, all of them were beaten to the ground. None of them could get up. Ha ha ha. Tang Tao laughed out loud. His eyes were full of contempt. The brothers beside him also shook their heads helplessly. Tang Tao patted Dalei's shoulder and said, It's not that I look down on you, but with your mediocre skills, anyone who cultivates inner strength can easily defeat all of you. Dalei awkwardly squeezed out a bitter smile. This meant that they were all idiots. Tomorrow is the gathering of Dao soldiers for the All Dao Festival. Let me see what he can do for the Tang family after investing so much money in him. That night, Jiang Xiu naturally went to Aunt Xiang's house to spend the night. He had lived here for several years. No matter how shabby the house was, he would not dislike it. Moreover, there was the most beautiful place here. He could climb to the roof with a ladder. There was no place more artistic than sitting on the roof and looking at the moon. His phone vibrated. It was a message from Yi Bing. Bastard Jiang Xiu, you openly skipped class for an entire day. You are too arrogant. Jiang Xiu smiled faintly. It was 9 o'clock, and the evening self-study session had just ended. He guessed that Yi Bing had been holding back her anger until now. Jiang Xiu, I don't need to explain to you what I do. Yi Bing immediately replied. How is it none of our business? You skipped class for no reason and affected the attendance of our class. The little red flag for attendance for this week is gone. It's all your fault. You really don't treat me as a class leader. Jiang Xiu, stupid. That's a trick for kids. Yi Bing, that's also an honor. Jiang Xiu, your honor is to strive to become my maid. Yi Bing, bah, you pervert. Jiang Xiu, think about it. My status is so noble that you can only have a chance if you become my concubine. You have no hope in this lifetime, because you are not gentle enough. Yi Bing almost exploded on the other side of the phone. She was so angry that her face turned red. She kept slapping herself with her hands, and then called Jiang Xiu. She exploded. Jiang Xiu, you perverted bastard. Shameless bastard. Tonight, you are an incomplete life form. You are a moron with genetic mutation. You are a primary school student at the level of a toddler. A chimpanzee with a yin and yang imbalance. You are the strongest trash in human history. You pollute the air when you are alive and pollute when you are dead. Click. Miss Yi hung up the phone. Her whole body felt comfortable. Well, now it was the spiritual cultivation's turn to be stunned. Blue veins appeared on Jiang Xiu's forehead. I officially inform you that you are disqualified from being my maid forever. Forever. The next day before dawn, the entire East Continent was in a festive mood. It's coming, it's coming. There was a heavenly Dao temple on top of a mountain in the East Continent. Not long after the sun came out, it was already full of people. It's Boss Zhong from Shay. Wen Zuolin from Qingshui. Look, isn't that Master Lei from the new district? Chapter 62. The arrival of every ambitious and ruthless person would definitely cause an uproar. Some were excited, some were shocked, and some were resentful. No matter who it was, they were all overlords in their respective places. They were people who could shake the earth with a stomp of their feet. They could be said to be all-powerful. They must be here for the number one in Jiang City, right? This was also the consensus of everyone. The gathering of Dao soldiers had long changed. Even the locals of the East Continent did not believe that there was such a thing as God in this world. Only a few people would still pursue the illusory Dao soldiers. The young master of the Tang family, Tang Wenchong, Tang Tao, and the others also entered the temple. The Tang family was a typical example. They were only here to fight for supremacy, not to pursue the illusory door of immortals. Have you seen Mr. Jiang? Why hasn't he appeared yet? After waking up this morning, Jiang Xiu's phone could not be reached. According to speculation, it should be out of battery. In fact, it was indeed so. Jiang Xiu did not bring a charger, and his phone was old. Soon it ran out of battery. Why did the Tang family only send a few small fries this time? Hehe. The person who spoke was Boss Zhong of Shay. He shouted at the Tang family. These people are not enough to fill the gaps between my teeth. Everyone said that after old Master Tang got old, the Tang family went into decline. It seems that people were right. The Tang family frowned. What did you say? Dalai, you used to have the protection of the Tang family. Now the Tang family can't even protect themselves. Let's see what you can do today. Boss Zhong nodded to a short and strong middle-aged man beside him. He suddenly rushed out of the crowd and leaped into the air. His entire body was like a breeze, sweeping over the heads of countless people. He crossed the crowd and landed in the field. Dalai's expression changed drastically. Shay was close to the new city area, and there was constant friction between the two sides. They had long formed a life and death feud. In the past, no one dared to challenge the Tang family, because the Tang family had Grandmaster Chu Tiannan. But now they had no one to rely on. A man beside Tang Tao said, I'll do it. Zhan Langqi, are you confident? Zhan Langqi's gaze swept over his opponent. He cultivates the light body technique together with the eagle claw technique. It's just a small Dao. As long as he doesn't use the ancient eagle claw and cultivates both inside and outside, I can defeat him. After saying that, he suddenly stomped the ground and shot out like an arrow. In an instant, the two of them exchanged blows, throwing punches and kicks. Before everyone had arrived, they had already started. It was really exciting. Tang Tao's heart sank after watching only one round. His opponent was a master of the eagle claw. Wherever his claws passed, there was a faint cold light. This was the sign of inner strength bursting out. The peak of inner strength was very close to transforming strength. His strength was enough to crush rocks easily. The people outside were still walking in one after another. It's the Yi clan. Yi Ilyang is here. Yi Ilyang had a great reputation. He was the most famous of the middle-aged generation in Jiang district. On the surface, he was the chairman of a group with billions of assets. In reality, he was a descendant of the Yi family. More than 10 years ago, he had established a firm foothold in Jiang City. Later, he suddenly left Jiang City and made a comeback many years later. Shay is already fighting with the Tang family. Yi Ilyang shook his head and said, Today a real enemy is coming, but they are still fighting here. On the side, Elder Lin also looked serious. Mimi is right. It seems that there is a good show to watch. A girl wearing a cap walked in, followed by a group of people. It was Lin Mi, the eldest daughter of the Lin family. She had come to Dongzhou State to watch this show. Jiang City is a mixed bag of good and bad people. In addition, the economy has been developing rapidly in recent years. Many people have their eyes on this place. Many big forces have also infiltrated here. Today will be very exciting. Eldest Miss, look. Is it that guy? In the distance, Jiang Xiu, Chu Qianqing, Danian, Chen Shui, Xiao Min, and the others were also watching the show in the crowd. From time to time, they would help the village's snack shop sell some things. Lin Mi smiled contemptuously. A street vendor. He would understand what he desired and needed. Lin Mi could already see that Jiang Xiu was faintly dissociated from his companions, because he did not participate in the sales. More of his attention was focused on the field. Jiang Xiu said faintly, 37 moves defeated. Then he lost interest in watching. That person looks a bit like Bao Lingyun and Pei Shuai. Jiang Xiu saw two familiar faces. Xiaomin said with an ugly expression, "Ignore them. Two scumbags." Bao Lingyun and Pei Shuai also saw them and swaggered over. Bao Lingyun's lips curled up into a smug smile. "Setting up a street stall, huh? Little Min, Chen Shui, I say, what can you guys do with these two little shrimps? If you follow me, I guarantee you'll eat and drink well." He reached out and pulled the girl who was wearing sexy and revealing clothes and pulled out her bag. Chanel 30,000 for one. The girl was also young. She wore heavy makeup and was very proud. 30,000. The surrounding people's eyes widened when they heard this. Their annual expenses were only 3,000. 30,000 was enough for them to use for 10 years, but they only bought one bag. They were simply filthy rich. "We don't care." Although their mouths were resolute, the two girls' eyes dimmed. This was a normal psychological gap. The other party casually spent 30,000 to buy luxury goods, but they had to worry about 30 or 300. What's more, they were not worse than anyone else. Bao Lingyun saw Jiang Xiu and said in surprise, "Yo, isn't this? Who's that? What's the name of the one who left the city to study?" Jiang Xiu said indifferently, "Jiang Xiu. I remember. The trash who was beaten into a pile of shit by me." At that time, Jiang Xiu was very small. When he met a kid who grew up earlier than him, was bigger than him, and fought all day, he had no strength to fight back. Later, he was beaten up by Danian and Chu Qiancheng. The scar on his face was left at that time. As a result, hatred was formed. In Jiang Xiu's group, there was a girl named Ziran. Jiang Xiu remembered that she was quite delicate, and Bao Lingyun took a fancy to her. One day, they did not leave together. The girl was blocked in the school alone. At that time, she was still in junior high school. As a result, the girl slipped and fell from the second floor of the school and died. From then on, the hatred became deeper. It could be said that they were incompatible like fire and water. Chu Qiancheng said angrily, "Enough, Bao Lingyun. Who cares about your stinky money?" "You don't care?" Bao Lingyun chuckled and took out a stack of money. Without saying anything, he threw 1,000 yuan on the ground. Then he hugged his girl and left with his brothers. The 1,000 yuan was thrown on the ground as if he was rewarding a beggar. "Pei Shuai, let's go." Jiang Xiu was very surprised. Pei Shuai used to be their best friend. He did not expect that he would become their enemy. Chu Qiancheng said, "Traitor." Pei Shuai stopped and said with a disdainful smile, "Don't be silly. If I follow Brother Yin, I will have money and women. If I follow you, will I stay in a poor ditch and be poor for the rest of my life?" They were like generals who had won a battle and left proudly. They went to Boss Shezhong's camp. Chu Qiancheng said angrily, "Isn't it just following a boss and earning some money? What are you so arrogant for?" He was even more angry in his heart. Jiang Xiu really should not have rejected the Lin family. He followed the boss of a county and was awe-inspiring. He earned a lot of money and was the boss. He suppressed them until they could not raise their heads. Not to mention the Lin family, which was one of the top families in China. It was such a pity. Danian said, "This kid has been eyeing Little Min recently. He goes to Little Min's barbecue shop every 2 to 3 days. He wants to completely destroy Danian and me." Chu Qiancheng's face turned green. Jiang Xiu smiled faintly and said, "It's okay. After today, he will definitely respect me like a god." Bang! Zhang Langqi screamed. His chest was fiercely clawed. His entire body, including his clothes and flesh, had several claw marks. His entire body spun in the air like a fried dough twist, and fell heavily to the ground. At this time, people could see clearly that there were 5 deep holes in his chest. Blood was constantly gushing out from them. This claw had penetrated more than 3 centimeters into his flesh. "I admit defeat." His face was pale. If he did not admit defeat, he would definitely die if he was hit again. "Ha ha ha, is the Tang family all trash? They can't even take a beating." Boss Shezhong was extremely proud. "Daliai, the Tang family can't protect you this time. Daliai's territory in the new city district will belong to me from now on." Daliai's face was ashen. He looked at Tang Wenchong and Tang Tao. He was the spokesperson of the Lei family in the underworld. On the surface, he was very powerful, but in reality, he had to listen to the Tang family. Those assets were his in name, but the real owner was the Tang family. The people present were in an uproar. The entertainment city in the new city district and the surrounding industries. How much money would that be? What about that Jiang guy? Tang Tao checked the injuries of his subordinates and suppressed the anger in his heart. He ate my Tang family's flowers. My Tang family borrowed the power of the Tang family. At this juncture, he disappeared. Chapter 63. Tang Wenchong frowned inwardly and said, Uncle Tao, Grandpa said that a powerhouse like Mr. Jiang must be treated with full respect and reverence. We must not neglect him in the slightest, let alone offend him with words. Don't worry. Since Mr. Jiang promised to come back, he'll definitely come. Mr. Jiang is a man of his word. He probably hasn't found us yet. Tang Tao snorted and said, he better be useful. Otherwise, don't blame the Tang family for being hostile. He didn't take Tang Wenchong's words seriously. In his eyes, how capable could a young man be? There was a saying in the underground world of the Dark Clan, that one punch could defeat 10,000 punches. If you lost a battle, there would be more people coming to step on you. I want to fight the Tang family. I want to fight the Tang family too. Many families mentioned that they wanted to fight the Tang family. Tang Tao's subordinates went up one after another. Although they were all elite warriors, they were all defeated by an internal force master. I want to fight the Tang family too. They used to be the overlord of Jiangcheng, but now they had become a rat that everyone wanted to beat up. The prestige that they had accumulated over the years was all gone in one move. Wenchong, when is that bullsh*t Mr. Jiang coming? He didn't run away, right? The crowd cheered louder and louder. No. Beside Yi Ilyang, Elder Lin frowned and shook his head. Why do you say that, Elder Lin? Elder Lin said, the Tang family's strength is not limited to this. Even if Chu Tiannan was killed, they still have connections with the military. It's not impossible for them to hire another master. According to Tang Jinshan's character, he won't give up so easily. Moreover, they didn't even send an internal force master. This is too strange. Hearing Elder Lin's words, Yi Ilyang also felt strange. Among the Lin family members who were watching the battle, the short-haired young man couldn't help but say, after coming to Jiangcheng, I heard that Tang Jinshan is the strongest underground force. Now it seems that he's just fishing for fame. They were beaten to the point that they couldn't fight back. Uncle Fu nodded and said, the ones representing the Tang family are all soldiers from the military. Furthermore, they haven't cultivated any internal strength, so they aren't a match for internal strength masters. As far as I know, the Tang family has a close relationship with Chu Tiannan, the great grandmaster. Why didn't he come? Moreover, he should have his own internal strength experts. Why is he in such dire straits? Something's wrong. Lin Mi asked in confusion. Uncle Fu, what's wrong? Fu Bo just frowned and shook his head. He didn't know exactly what was wrong. It was just his intuition. However, at this moment, Elder Lin and Uncle Fu's eyes suddenly lit up at the same time. They both thought of a possibility at the same time. Unless the Tang family's experts are already here, but they haven't made a move yet. In the arena, it seemed like there was no way to lose. Tang Tao said, Wenchong, it's all your fault. If you hadn't said so confidently that you had already invited an expert, and would definitely win, I would have invited our leader over. Now that the Tang family has lost like this, let's see how you explain it to grandfather. Cold sweat trickled down Tang Wenzong's forehead. He gritted his teeth and rushed to the stage. Mr. Jiang, please make a move. Mr. Jiang, please make a move. Hearing that Tang Wenzong had invited someone, Elder Lin and Uncle Fu were even more certain of their speculation. The Tang family's experts had already arrived, but they hadn't made a move yet. They couldn't help but look forward to it. At the same time, disdain flashed through their eyes. What kind of expert was so arrogant? Jiang Xiao, who was helping the village sell things, couldn't help but look up when he heard this. He saw Tang Wenzong excitedly shouting at the square platform on the stage. "Mr. Jiang, please make a move." He shouted 5 or 6 times, but no one responded. Tang Wenzong's heart sank. His legs were trembling, and his heart was already filled with despair. Could it be, as Uncle Tao said, that Jiang Xiu had really escaped? A minute passed and still no one responded. Daily Eye's face turned pale when he saw this. Jiang Xiu was his only hope now. If Jiang Xiu couldn't come out of the Herculean King Kuanglan, then he, Daily Eye, would be a stray dog in the future. He immediately rushed forward without hesitation and shouted, "Mr. Jiang, please make your move." Hundreds of his brothers followed behind him and shouted as well. "Mr. Jiang, please make a move." 2 minutes passed. Despite their shocking shouts, the so-called Mr. Jiang still didn't appear. Just as the Tang family was in despair, and the scene was roaring with laughter, a voice slowly sounded. "You called me?" In an instant, everyone's eyes turned to Jiang Xiu. Among them was a young man who was pushing a vending cart with fruit shells on it. "Are you crazy?" Chu Qiancheng, who was on the side, shouted in fright. Didn't he see the occasion? He wouldn't be scared to death. Bao Lingyun and Pei Shuai, who were in the line of She Zhong's boss, were amused when they saw that it was Jiang Xiu. Does this kid think that the other party is calling for food? He's calling for Mr. Jiang. Why are you responding? You must be crazy about doing business. Ha ha ha, I'm dying of laughter. Lin Mi also saw him. It was him, the guy who rejected her yesterday and was shocked by her. What kind of trouble did he come up with again? He was really not afraid of death. Didn't he see that the ambitious and ruthless people on the ground were in a killing frenzy? Didn't he see that 5 or 6 people from the Tang family had already died? Was this the place for him to joke? She secretly shook her head and rejoiced. Originally, she thought that Jiang Xiu was loyal and willing to sacrifice himself for others. Now she saw that he was simply a brainless hothead. Fortunately, he rejected her. Otherwise, she would have found an unpresentable person for the family. The people on the side saw him as a scourge and stepped aside for fear of being implicated. On the occasion yesterday, Chu Qianqing and Chen Shui still had the courage to stop Jiang Xiu. But today, they were scared out of their wits. They saw Jiang Xiu let go of the cart, and then walk to the center of the field unhurriedly. Tang Wenchong also saw it. He saw Jiang Xiu. At this moment his eyes were red, and he had an urge to cry. It was really a mixture of feelings. He was already desperate just now, but Jiang Xiu once again descended from the sky. He was coming, he was coming. "Mr. Jiang, please make a move." This was almost a roar. It was really a roar, and his voice was hoarse. "Mr. Jiang, please make a move." Daily Eye's subordinates were full of momentum. They naturally recognized that the person in front of them was Mr. Jiang, whom they had been waiting for. The crowd retreated like a receding tide, opening up a narrow path for them. There was also a kind person who reminded him, "Young man, his name is Mr. Jiang, not you. Go back quickly. Do you want to die?" In everyone's impression, Mr. Jiang, whom the Tang family was looking forward to, must be a top powerhouse. To cultivate martial arts to that level, he must be at least 40 or 50 years old. How could he be such a young teenager? Jiang Xiu smiled faintly. He walked step by step, neither hurried nor slow. He was indifferent to everyone's gaze. Yi Ilyang also saw him, and involuntarily stood up. "It's that kid. What is he doing here? Is he crazy? Could it be that this kid wants to prove himself in front of me for Bingbing? Although his courage is commendable, he's too brainless. Is this something you can come to? Can you deal with the opponent on the field?" Seeing Jiang Xiu walk over, Tang Wenchong was even more excited. "Mr. Jiang, you're finally here." He stared at Jiang Xiu as if he was looking at the registration of a king. "Mr. Jiang, please make your move." At this time, Jiang Xiu had already walked to the center of the stage. Tang Wenchong was talking to him. Wow. There was an uproar in the field. Everyone was shocked. Was he really Mr. Jiang? Young Master Tang was really talking to him? The most shocked people were Jiang Xiu's friends, Chu Qiancheng, Danian, Chen Shui, and Xiaomin. Jiang Xiu grew up with them. They hadn't seen him for only 3 years. How could he become Mr. Jiang? Was there really no mistake? The smile on Bao Lingyun's face slowly froze. How could it be? How could he become Mr. Jiang? Jiang Xiu's eyes were indifferent. There were all kinds of reactions in the field. He didn't come here to stand up for the Tang family. He came here for the Taoist soldiers to gather and the immortals to open the door. The only thing that could really move Jiang Xiu was the temptation of increasing his strength. Tang Tao snorted coldly and walked toward Jiang Xiu with an angry face. "You're Mr. Jiang. Where have you been? Didn't you see that so many of my Tang brothers died?" His tone was very harsh, almost accusing. "Why did you only come out now?" He seemed to mean that the deaths of his Tang family were all caused by Jiang Xiu. Tang Wenchong was so shocked that his eyes almost fell out. But it was too late to stop him. Bang! Suddenly, lightning exploded inside the Heavenly Tao Temple. Chapter 64. He thought that he could order Jiang Xiu around just because he spent hundreds of millions to buy a street for Jiang Xiu. However, Jiang Xiu used his actions to tell him that he was wrong. Boom! There seemed to be a thunderous explosion in the Heaven Taoist Temple. A faint smoke exploded from his hand. The smoke burst and dispersed. In an instant, it swept out violently like a gust of wind. Tang Wenchong and Dalai, who were standing in front of Jiang Xiu, were directly blown back by this force. They still couldn't stand and sat on the ground. They were directly blown 2 or 3 meters away. The people who were a little further away couldn't even open their eyes because of the gust of wind. Even the windows were blown away. The sound was so sharp that it hurt their eardrums. At this moment, time and space seemed to be stretched infinitely. Everything became so slow as if it had stopped. When everything stopped, Tang Tao was directly slapped in the face by Jiang Xiu. His whole body flew out horizontally like a kite with a broken string. He flew more than 10 meters horizontally, hit the entrance door, and fell down. Then he rolled all the way down the stairs. At this moment, the gust of wind that seemed to have stopped finally exploded. The momentum was so strong that it was really like a cannonball landing. The whole Heaven Taoist Temple was blown away. Scraps of paper on the ground flew everywhere. And the house was on the verge of collapse. It exploded, it completely exploded. The whole place was silent, dead silent. It wasn't scary. Jiang Xiu just swung his hand. Tang Wenchong was stunned. He only heard from Tang Jinshan that Jiang Xiu was very strong. He also knew that Jiang Xiu could control the thunder in Baden that day. However, he never thought that Jiang Xiu could be so strong. As for Elder Lin, Uncle Fu, and other top masters who claimed to be first class were extremely shocked. They were all wondering what level Jiang Xiu's martial arts cultivation had reached. Inner force, transcendent state, or demigod? They didn't dare to imagine. It was hard to imagine. Lin Mi's eyes were wide open. She was really shocked. She didn't expect him to be so strong. As for Boss Zhong, Wen Zuolin, and of course Jiang Xiu's childhood friends, they were the most shocked. They were dumbfounded, and their mouths were wide open for a long time. Chu Qiancheng, Danian, Xiao Min, and Chen Shui couldn't believe that Jiang Xiu, who grew up with them, could be so powerful with a casual wave of his hand. Is this still the Jiang Xiu we know? You dare to speak rudely to me? Only then did the people present realize that Jiang Xiu's target was Tang Tao of the Tang family, and he was invited by the Tang family. At this point, everyone knew that his relationship with the Tang family was definitely not that of a subordinate. He was more like a consecrator invited by the Tang family, or even not a consecrator. It was more likely that the Tang family had asked him to help. Tang Wenzong's face was pale, and he was sweating. Thank you, Mr. Jiang, for teaching him a lesson. He was also very angry. He had repeatedly told Tang Tao to be respectful to Mr. Jiang, and not offend Mr. Jiang. Well, not only did Tang Tao not listen, but he also rudely pushed the responsibility of the Tang family's defeat to Jiang Xiu. He even spoke rudely to Jiang Xiu. If this wasn't asking for trouble, what was? The Tang family will definitely punish Mr. Jiang severely, but he is my elder after all. Tang Wenzong has no right to punish him. I have to ask my grandfather to make the decision. Jiang Xiu snorted coldly. He spared Tang Tao's life because he wanted the Tang family to give him an explanation. His eyes turned and fell on Bao Lingyun and Pei Shuai. The latter two's faces turned pale. Just a moment ago, when Jiang Xiu went on the stage, they slandered Jiang Xiu in front of Boss Zhong, saying that he was just a country bumpkin in the village, and how he was bullied by them when he was young, and how he was beaten by them until he knelt and begged for mercy. I want you. He pointed his finger at Boss Zhong. As for why he chose him, it was self-evident. Master Zhang. Boss Zhong signaled him to go on the stage. He was the one who used the eagle claw skill. Master Zhang's resolute face was a little pale. The power that Jiang Xiu showed just now was not something that he could resist. However, there was no such thing as admitting defeat in the gathering of Taoist soldiers. He had to go on the stage. It was good that he could survive. Most of the time, he had to die on the stage alone. I'm afraid of you, so what? Once again he performed the lightness skill. His whole body rose into the air and pounced on the stage like an eagle. He stretched out his eagle claw and attacked Jiang Xiu. Humph! Jiang Xiu actually didn't understand martial arts. The martial arts here were different from the immortal martial arts on the immortal martial continent. It was pure martial arts because it was a low-level skill. Why was it called low-level? In some low-level places like Earth, no matter how high one's martial arts cultivation was, even if one had reached the great grandmaster realm, or even the demigod realm, if one encountered a 1,000-year-old demoness, it was not as effective as a minor repair specialist's broken talisman. The result was that one would be instantly sucked dry. Therefore, what Jiang Xiu learned was immortal martial arts. It was driven by spells, but now he was using divine force as the driving force. That was the case with the sleeve just now. Boom. The sound of thunder rang out again in the teaching hall. Jiang Xiu's eyes were cold. He casually struck out with his palm. Under the horrified eyes of the crowd, white smoke gushed out. With a bang, it heavily hit Master Zhang's body. He was 2 to 3 meters away, but it was as if he was hit by a 10-ton truck. He was directly sent flying. He was sent flying in the same way that he flew on the stage. He had already been killed in the void. When he fell to the ground, he was already dead. Hiss. At this moment, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. They looked at Jiang Xiu as if they were looking at a demon. What kind of strength was this? Everyone present felt a chill down their spine. At this moment, Tang Wencheng finally saw how terrifying Jiang Xiu was. He was so strong that it made people's hair stand on end. Boss Zhong's face was ashen. Bao Lingyun and Pei Shuai were so scared that their legs went soft, and they couldn't even stand. Jiang Xiu's childhood friend's eyes were wide open, and a warm current was surging in his heart. Young Master Xiu was too fierce. He was so excited that he almost burst into tears. They finally understood why Jiang Xiu said that he would make those two bastards respect him, as if he was a god. At this moment, Jiang Xiu was a god who dominated their life and death. After killing them, Jiang Xiu turned around and looked at Yi Ilyang. Yi Ilyang frowned and looked at Jiang Xiu with vigilance and warning. He sneered in his heart. Boy, do you want to challenge me? Jiang Xiu's strength was a little beyond his imagination. He thought that Jiang Xiu was only good at fighting, and was at the early stage of internal force at most. Now it seemed that this boy might be at the level of peak strength. I want you. He pointed his finger at Yi Ilyang. He stood up with a pale face and spat out 2 words fiercely. You're courting death. Elder Lin. Elder Lin was the biggest support from the Yi family. His original intention was to protect his safety. He wouldn't be like more than 10 years ago when he had to go to Tangjinshan for help after encountering a master like Lin Jinbei. In the end, he had to leave Jiangcheng. Lin Jinbei made a comeback and Tangjinshan lost his arm. Yi Ilyang had the ambition to dominate the underworld of Jiangzhou. Originally, he wanted to save Elder Lin to deal with Lin Jinbei. He wanted to step on Lin Jinbei's body and reach the top of Jiangcheng. He didn't expect that Elder Lin would make a move in advance. Although he would be a little passive if he exposed his strength, he didn't think it would affect the outcome. Okay. Elder Lin's tone was very calm. Then he slowly walked forward. He really didn't expect that Jiang Xiu, who he regarded as an ignorant madman in the villa area, would stand in front of him and become his opponent. It's not bad to have such a cultivation at such a young age. Elder Lin was very arrogant. It's a pity that you challenged the wrong person. Boom. Elder Lin suddenly stomped his foot. Qi energy burst out from all over his body. It was as if it was real. Internal force release, sky silk rain. The people below couldn't stay calm anymore. They couldn't recognize Jiang Xiu's moves, but they knew all about Elder Lin's moves. Oh my god, a transcendent master. Jiang Xiu shook his head secretly. Child's play. Forget it. I'll show you what real martial arts are today. As soon as he finished speaking, he raised his hands slightly. His palms moved forward and his fingers changed rapidly. One after another, Dharma seals were deduced. He was using the immortal martial arts. Heart-shaking seal, demonic origin seal, roaring sky explosion, calling thunder shock, Li Yuan change. When his immortal martial Dharma seals were deduced, it contained hundreds of seals. One could block the first seal, but not the second seal. One could block the second seal, but not the third seal. Spiritual cultivation ultimate technique. Exploding seal wheel. Chapter 65. Lin Mi couldn't help but ask, Uncle Fu, is the sky silk rain that powerful? Uncle Fu let out a wry smile and said, It is more than powerful. Sky silkworm silk is known as the thinnest and toughest silk thread. Even the most advanced technology is unable to create a mixed silk thread thinner than sky silkworm silk. Even swords and sabers cannot cut it. However, Qi silk, which is condensed from air currents, can directly break the sky silkworm silk. One can imagine how terrifying the sky silkworm silk rain is. Legend has it that the sky silk rain could turn a 1-meter square marble into dust. Lin Mi's eyes widened in surprise. That is so powerful. Uncle Fu nodded with a serious face. It was rare to see such a powerful fighter. Looks like that arrogant kid is dead meat. Lin Mi felt a burst of joy in her heart. Just now, when Jiang Xiu made his move, she had a feeling of being retaliated against, which made her very unhappy. If Jiang Xiu was really an arrogant and ignorant country boy, she could still accept his rejection of the Lin clan even though she was angry. After all, he didn't know how strong you were, so he naturally wouldn't respect you. However, Jiang Xiu wasn't weak, so he naturally wouldn't be an ignorant country boy. Of course, he knew what kind of existence the Lin clan was. Under such circumstances, rejecting the Lin clan and looking down on them was a true blasphemy. It is too easy for him to die like this. Those who offended the Lin family never had a good ending. The prestige of a wealthy family was inviolable. It is a worthy death to die under the sky silk rain. The heavenly silk rain was one of the few top-tier martial arts techniques. In order to master it successfully, one had to reach the transcendent grandmaster level. Not only did one have to release the internal force externally, one also had to be able to control the release of the internal force. It would take at least 60 years to master such a technique. How many 60 years was a person's lifespan? In Uncle Fu's opinion, it was a kind of glory to let a top expert display his trump card. However, he believed that Jiang Xiu was not worthy of this kind of glory. Shoo, shoo. The sky was filled with fine drizzles that seemed to be intermittent. Not only were they unpredictable, but when they were swung, they carried an incomparably terrifying force that could easily pierce through and cut apart reinforced steel plates. It is Lin Jinan. Someone finally recognized Senior Lin, after he made his move. Gasp. Everyone exclaimed in surprise. Demigod Lin Jinan? No one was able to remain calm. Everyone thought that Jiang Xiu was unstoppable after he killed so many people. However, they didn't expect that Yi Ilyang had a demigod as his backup. No one present was optimistic about Jiang Xiu anymore. Lin Jinan's reputation was too great. Chu Tiannan's reputation in Jiangnan was resounding enough. Everyone looked up to him. Back then, Tang Jinshan had to drive up the mountain in the heavy rain to invite him out. However, Chu Tiannan was like a child in front of Lin Jinan. A man who could become a demigod was simply an existence from another world. Sooner or later, he would look down on all living beings. However, when Jiang Xiu finished unsealing the seal, his right palm pushed out with a strange seal technique, his palm facing outwards. Many people shook their heads. His hand could be considered crippled. It could even penetrate a boulder, let alone a palm of flesh. However, the densely packed threads that could penetrate a boulder were broken inch by the translucent white light in front of the palm before they could touch it. How is this possible? Senior Lin's expression changed. His heavenly silk rain was condensed with extremely pure inner force. It could even penetrate a diamond. How could it be broken by a pair of palms? You call this a martial art technique? Jiang Xiu shook his head. He was very disappointed. His opponent was too weak to show his strength. Sigh. You don't even know what a martial art technique is. Boom. He pushed out his palm. What he did just now was just his opening move. As he pushed out the seal, the space covered by the seal seemed to be filled with the roar of cannons, the sound of thunder and lightning, the whistling of wind, the crying of ghosts, and the tearing of space. It was a domineering display of all kinds of power. You're defeated. This seal was like a seal that overturned the sky. It was as heavy as a mountain. It was as if heaven and earth had been turned upside down. He was powerful to the extreme, and extremely abnormal. How is this possible? Lin Jinan was horrified. Under this power, he felt a powerful and unparalleled heavenly might. It was as if he was facing a landslide or a tsunami. Under everyone's astonished gazes, Lin Jinan seemed to have opened a door, and the inside of the room exploded. His whole body flew out. While he was still in the air, the two-story building of the Heavenly Tao Arena 20 meters behind him was smashed into pieces by the shockwave. In the middle of the building, there was a hollow in the shape of a fingerprint. What kind of martial art technique is this? Uncle Fu Yiliang Linmi, and the other's eyes almost popped out. They couldn't be scared to death. Was this a movie? At this time, Lin Jinan was screaming in his heart. This kind of power was beyond the limit of martial arts. This young man was so powerful. Was he going to die? Bang! He fell heavily to the ground and vomited blood. Elder Lin. Yi Ilyang came to his senses and screamed. Elder Lin might be. They didn't dare to think about it. That was the treasure of the Yi family. Nothing must happen to him. Yi Ilyang rushed over and helped Lin Jinan up from the ground. His face was full of grief. Elder Lin's face was pale, and blood kept flowing out of his mouth. He said with difficulty, His heart meridian is not broken. At his level, as long as his heart meridian was not broken, he would not die. Hearing this, Yi Ilyang finally breathed a sigh of relief. Do you know why I spared his dog life? Jiang Xiu's voice drifted over faintly. It was as if what he had just done was just a trivial matter. Dog life? It was ear-piercing, but now it was not ear-piercing at all. Even the house 20 meters behind him had a two-story handprint on it, not to mention Elder Lin's heart meridian. He must have been merciful. Yi Ilyang looked at Jiang Xiu in confusion. Jiang Xiu said, This sovereign will also spare your dog life. This is a gift from this sovereign. If you want to thank this sovereign, then thank your daughter for lending this sovereign 1,800 yuan at school. It was your daughter who saved you. Yi Ilyang's entire body shook violently, and his complexion alternated between green and white. Just a few days ago, Jiang Xiu had shamelessly boasted in front of him that he was not worthy of his daughter. Now, if it were not for this layer of relationship, he would have died here. At this moment, not only was the pride in his heart completely shattered by Jiang Xiu, he was even trampled on the ground with his feet. This counterattack was not only sharp, but also fatal. But he had to admit that Elder Lin was defeated. Yi Ilyang had no chance of winning against him. Jiang Xiu's strength made it difficult for him to resist. He could only endure this humiliation. At this moment, everyone present was completely stunned. Looking at the hollowed-out house, they felt like they were dreaming. Could a person destroy a house like this? Especially Chu Qiancheng, Danian, and a few other childhood friends. They were completely petrified. This was done by Jiang Xiu? It was too shocking. Uncle Fu, Linmi, and the others looked at the house, and their pupils couldn't help but widen. They were undoubtedly shocked. Those who didn't know the business only felt shocked, but those who really knew the business understood how terrifying this was. Only a demigod would be able to do something like this. This person was actually a demigod. Which of the demigods wasn't a white-haired old man? The youngest demigod was already more than 50 years old, but this person in front of him was only in his teens. Oh my God, if he was given another 10 or 20 years, how much would he grow to? No wonder he said he would go to the Lin family and said that when he stepped into the Lin family would bow to him. No wonder he was so arrogant. Suddenly, a trace of fear flashed in the eyes of Lin Mi, Uncle Fu, and the others. A terrifying thought appeared in their minds. This person was so ruthless and vengeful. Since he saw accepting him into the Lin family as a humiliation, then he would definitely take revenge. Suddenly, the surrounding air seemed to drop by 5 or 6 degrees, and a chill swept through everyone. Jiang Xiu retracted his gaze and looked at them with a cold gaze. Once again he slowly raised his finger. His finger was pointed at Uncle Fu, who was beside Lin Mi. Just yesterday, he killed in front of Jiang Xiu to intimidate him. Uncle Fu's face suddenly turned pale. A person suspected to be a demigod. Although Uncle Fu thought he was extraordinary, with Lin Jinnan in front of him, he didn't have any confidence. There was a glimmer of hope in his heart that he wouldn't be pointed at. But Jiang Xiu's voice sounded like a curse. I want you. You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.